Good evening and welcome to one special night. I can't believe it's been a year since we did the last one of these, and I also can't believe SpecialEffect have invited me back to do another one after poor Tim Schafer felt he'd been press ganged into being interviewed by his number one stalker, but I'm very grateful they have. We've got a brilliant night of fantastic speakers lined up. We've got some amazing prizes. We'll get into all that in a minute. But invite me back, SpecialEffect have. And with the lineup we've got tonight, I've got no doubt that everyone will be grateful they've taken a night off queuing up for petrol. If you don't know me, I'm Colin McDonald. I've been in the UK games industry for over 30 years now, from Lemmings and Grand Theft Auto to Channel 4 and Games Jobs Live, the games industry recruitment events that have taken off in the pandemic. And if you don't already know about SpecialEffect, we'll tell you more in due course. But essentially, it's a brilliant, brilliant charity that specializes in helping physically disabled people play video games. Tomorrow is their sixth one special day when countless games companies across the world are supporting their work with donations, virtual events, and more. Obviously, anyone not watching this must be one of the smug electric car owners that's out driving to the furthest cinema within range to see James Bond. And you don't want your friends and colleagues to be thought of like that, do you? So, if everyone could do their colleagues and their friends and family a favour, jump on social media and post something with the hashtag #OneSpecialNight. Anything at all, hopefully they'll pick it up. Tell them hashtag #OneSpecialNight. They'll find it. We're easy to find. One special night. Thank you very much. I know we're going to get some fun out of our amazing speakers. I'm hoping we'll get a lot in the chat as well. I see various people have kicked off the chat. We're just in the YouTube chat tonight. So do get involved in these conversations. This is part of the fun, whether you call it networking or a night off or just a bit of a laugh. Get involved in the YouTube chat. I recognise some famous industry names already from the chat so far. So do say hello to old pals, make some new ones, and of course, post up some suggested questions for me to put to some of our brilliant speakers later on, please, because otherwise you're going to be putting up with my questions. Speaking of our speakers, our speaker lineup tonight is so good that several of the speakers themselves have said to me that they can't believe who else they're appearing alongside. They're all games industry legends, and more importantly, they're all SpecialEffect supporters who have given up their time tonight to come and join us in this stream. So tonight, as a reminder, we have Dr. Joe Twist from UKIE, Tone Brennan from Mag Interactive, James Butcher from Xbox, Imre Jele from Bossa Studios, Kirsty Enfield from SwipeRight PR, Kieran Holmes-Darby from Excel Esports, and Peter Moore from Unity. What a brilliant lineup. So a lot of fun to be had, a lot of insights, a lot of learning to be had. I'm hoping to learn a thing or two tonight. But to get us started, what I'd like to do is to invite Nick Streeter from SpecialEffect to join us and tell us a little bit more about SpecialEffect. So, good evening, Nick.
Hi, Colin. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm much happier now we've started. These things are always very nerve-wracking before you get started, but now we're underway. It's great. I just can't wait to hear from everyone.
Oh, me as well. I just want to say a massive thank you to every single person and company who's part tonight in the One Special Day campaign as a whole. From One Special Steam sale that starts at 6 o'clock to One Special Football Match to One Special Day. The way that the game industry has embraced SpecialEffect and One Special Day campaign is just something amazing. And just kind of want to say, SpecialEffect feels so proud to be part of the game industry. And as Dr. Mick said many times, I think the last talk I was his before the pandemic, it's not our charity, it's your charity. And the way the game industry has embraced everything SpecialEffect stand for is just quite amazing. And I think every one of our guests tonight has been part of the SpecialEffect story in some way. Although I think Jo Twist is the only one who, after a glass of wine, has agreed to do a Tough Mudder, and I think she's forgiven us. Certainly hope so. So in the past year, since the last One Special Night, SpecialEffect has launched iGaze Games. Dr. Mick and the team just done amazing stuff, and that's being played by December Gamers in over 30 countries. And I just love that our lead sponsors tonight at AOC are from Holland, and our other sponsors, Brennan in Leamington and Tag in Dundee, just kind of shows the worldwide impact of what SpecialEffect do and the way the industry has embraced this so passionately. So SpecialEffect support, though, is more than often more than not over a lifetime. And before Peter's talk, we're going to share a story of Tom Clark, who many of you in the chat will know. And Tom very shared love of Liverpool FC as an Evertonian. That's great. That's the reason that Peter got involved when Tom got in touch with SpecialEffect, and it's just kind of great that Tom's family, they're very happy and they like us sharing Tom's story, and I hope that it inspires more people to get involved. And I think you agree with when you see it. It certainly does. Clarky was a great friend to SpecialEffect, especially Baz at the charity. Hi, Baz. And he's just such a big part. And I know tonight it'd be up there with his glass of cider, looking down at us with this big cheeky smile. And it's just brilliant that the fact that SpecialEffect had people for so long, and it's only down to people like you. There's going to be another example of the work of the charity with Katy and Lucinda, two amazing young people who play iGaze games. Katy in Helsinki and Lucinda in Surrey, and it's down to your support tonight. Sponsors, our partners, individuals. You're just amazing, and as I said, Dr. Mick says, so he's the gaffer, he's the CEO, founder. It's your charity, not our charity, and thank you ever so much for everything that you do. I'm now going to ask Colin to share a 2-minute clip of an amazing young lad, the lad's mum, a little lad called Samuel, which I think you agree sort of shows very powerfully the impact that One Special Night will have and what you amazing people do. Thank you ever so much from everybody at SpecialEffect. Thank you for your support tonight, and thank you for being part of the SpecialEffect story. We can never thank you enough.
And he came up with a wonderful line of that he said to me and my husband. He said, "Keep moving forward, because that's what heroes do," and it just stuck.
So tell us about Samuel.
Samuel is 9. In fact, he'll be 10 at the beginning of next week. He was born very, very early and was told that he would be unlikely to survive. And unfortunately, when he was 3 days old, he had a massive stroke. And that has meant that he's had numerous brain surgeries in his little life. And it has left him with very little use of his right side of his body. He's super determined, though, and will always try and find a way to overcome an obstacle.
Charlotte, could you tell us how this very special charity, SpecialEffect, has helped you and helped Samuel?
So a couple of years ago, Samuel was, 7, turning 8, and he, just like any little boy at that age, wanted to be able to play computer games. He, we tried, and he'd sit and we'd have to do the right-hand controls for him, and he could do the left hand. But it never felt very inclusive. And then we stumbled across the charity SpecialEffect, and they got back to us and said, yeah, we can definitely help. Samuel had expressed a wish to be able to play Nintendo Switch and particularly FIFA. So they very kindly said, yeah, okay, we can provide that to Samuel.
Could you tell us a bit about Samuel's character? He's obviously a hugely determined boy. He's
always so happy and so optimistic. He's in quite a bit of pain at times, and it's very difficult to remember that because he's always so upbeat. And he came up with a wonderful line of that he said to me and my husband. He said, "Keep moving forward, because that's what heroes do." And it just stuck. And I thought, what a wise line for such a small person.
Charlotte, can you tell us how important that day was when you found out about SpecialEffect?
To say they have literally changed our life, it is completely true. That is what has happened. It has given Samuel something that he can do and something that he enjoys on a day-to-day basis. It's just wonderful to see children and adults, and they do things for adults, just have that little spark back, that light, where they feel that they can do something that they didn't think they could ever do.
Wow. Yeah. You're going to hear a few more stories tonight from the world of Special Effect and find out just what an impact they've got. But honestly, it's absolutely amazing. They must have, dozens and dozens of stories like that to tell all the time, and they're always very touching. So thank you for tuning in tonight. Nick mentioned their one special day Steam sale. In case you want to jump onto that right now, the URL that will take you there is bit.ly/OSD Steam. There's some beautiful artwork. There's a whole bunch of great games there. There's a couple of ones that have been my standout games from the last sort of decade or so. Brothers and Her Story I've seen in there. No Man's Sky. There's some fantastic games, so do jump on. I'll be putting in a couple of purchases later on tonight. But what I'd like to do meantime, before we get started, is just to say thank you to the people that have helped us bring together this night. In particular, thank you to Aegon by AOC, to Gemba Digital, and Tag Games, who have all really, really kindly sponsored tonight's event. Thank you so much. You've made it possible. We'll talk about the donations later on, but already you'll see we're at some astronomical number. That's thanks to their generosity. So thank you so much to those three companies. And I'd also like to thank everyone that's worked so hard. Nick, Baz, everyone at Special Effect. Baz, I hope you get better soon. But everyone else that's done a great job getting this together. And I'd also like to thank all the organisations that have helped promote it. There are more than this. Thank you to everyone. But the ones that came to mind: UKIE, BAFTA Scotland, SGDA, Pocket Gamer, Game Republic, SGN, and thank you to so much everyone else for all the support in promoting this. It's already been a success, and that's before we've heard from anyone yet. At the end of the live stream tonight, we will have a prize draw, which everyone that's registered on the Eventbrite will be entered into. So if you're not already registered on the Eventbrite, you want to sort that out. You should have the link to hand. This redirect will take you straight there. If you type in a browser osn.gamesjobs.live, that'll redirect you straight to the Eventbrite. Register on that, and that automatically puts you in the raffle at the end of the night. That's osn.gamesjobs.live. I'll remind you of that a couple of times over the course of the evening to make sure we get everyone. However, to talk about the prizes, we have got some amazing, amazing prizes. So the prizes that are up for grabs are Samsung Philips HDK monitor with Ambiglow, kindly donated by our lead sponsors, AOC Gaming. We have a FIFA 22 code on the format of your choice, kindly donated by Electronic Arts. We've got £100 of Insert Coin clothing vouchers, kindly donated by Insert Coin Clothing. Pocket Gamer Connect have kindly donated a pair of tickets to their next digital event in November. My list's out of order. This is a signed one-of-a-kind Tim Schafer one special day t-shirt. This is what I was expecting. A digital bundle of driving games, kindly donated by Codemasters. And one of the highlights I've heard from several people is 4 pairs of Monument Valley socks, not available to buy anywhere in the world, kindly donated by Us2 Games. Wow. We also have Total War 3 Kingdoms Collector's Edition, featuring exclusive art book and statue, kindly donated by Creative Assembly. And there are a pair of general admission tickets to the Isle of Wight Festival 2022, kindly donated by Barclays. We also have a pair of general admission tickets to the 2022 Latitude Festival, also kindly donated by Barclays. So we have some amazing prizes there, some that literally money can't buy. And even knowing that Tim Schafer probably donated a t-shirt on the condition that he wasn't subjected to my fanboying ever again. Having all these prizes on offer is our way of enticing you into making a donation, and it doesn't matter how big or small, every penny goes to a brilliant cause. So please give a little and get yourself over to our Just Giving page. It's scrolling along the bottom of the stream throughout tonight. It's justgiving.com/fundraising/one-special-night-21. That's justgiving.com/fundraising/one-special-night-21. Get over there. Every penny helps. It goes to an amazing cause. If you've registered on the Eventbrite, you're already in with a chance of winning those amazing prizes. And I know the Monument Valley socks are high up everyone's list. So get over there. And if you feel like you can give something to a great cause, do that as well. It's time to get on with the chat. So when talking about our first guest, having been awarded both a PhD and an OBE by Her Majesty for her services to the UK games industry, our next speaker seems to have more letters after her name than in it. As CEO, she's led trade body UKIE for the last 10 years. It's Dr. Jo Twist. Jo.
Hello, good evening. Good evening. I didn't realise the Queen gave me my PhD. That was good.
I'll say I meticulously researched it, but it's got to be one of them. As long as it's the one we don't talk about, it's fine.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Jo, thank you very much for joining us. I'll leave everyone with you.
Thank you. And you can pull up my slides now. Don't worry, it's not going to be a whole bunch of boring slides. Well, they might be quite boring. Who knows? Let's see. It's great to be here talking with such a great lineup as well. It's not intimidating in any way. And I thought, right, I've got 10 minutes, apparently. And I've been thinking a lot. It's my 10-year anniversary in this UKIE job as CEO of the trade body that represents games in the UK next year in January. So I thought I'd share with you 10 reasons why games are the most powerful medium of the 21st century. And let's see if you agree. First of all, games build the skills we need for the 21st century. We often hear about the skills that we need for the future workforce, and those are kind of encapsulated as the 5 C's: critical thinking, collaboration, communication, creativity, and complex problem solving. And I really believe that playing games, and I know that people who do play games, as well as making games, really cultivate these skill sets massively. But also working in the industry and making these games requires other skill sets like resilience, and even playing games cultivates a sense of perseverance for me personally, because I'm terrible at games. But the people who work in games also are inventive, they require agility and a keen sense of curiosity. And I think the resilience point's been really important. And we've witnessed that over the last 18 months with the industry being so resilient to the pandemic. And at UKIE, we have a brilliant digital schoolhouse team who runs our education program, and they use our esports schools tournaments to try and help promote these 5 C's and these kinds of skill sets that you learn through creating and through playing games. And our evaluations of the tournaments and the young people who get involved with the tournaments all over the country have really shown that those skills are cultivated, particularly communication and collaboration, especially when they don't get to do team sports very often. But also being involved with the tournament, the evaluations show has tripled the level of interest in career opportunities in the video games industry, which I think is amazing. Games are the building blocks of the metaverse and have been for over 20 years. Now, metaverse is a huge buzzword in the industry and outside the industry. Almost every conversation I have with people who aren't part of the games industry are beginning to understand or question what is the metaverse. And to me, it is just and to lots of people, it is just the next iteration of what the internet is. But I believe that from the early days of GTA to Second Life to RuneScape to Roblox and of course Fortnite, many, many other iterations, these games have been creating these new locations for new kinds of economies, new kinds of events and experiences of events. And we're creating these persistent digital realms where real human feeling and emotion live. And will continue to do so. And I'm really interested in what the potential is and what our role is as a sector for helping to share that learning with other sectors, particularly the cultural industries, who've really been trying to play catch up in digital realms over the last 18 months. I'm also interested in how we and what our role is in building an ethical metaverse is, and one that is really inclusive. What about the sensory metaverse? I just read a really great blog post about this on Roblox's blog. The ways in which we communicate in the metaverse are not bound by the limitations of physical reality. Games can change lives. We're going to hear a lot about that tonight. And the whole reason why SpecialEffect is so close to many of our hearts is because of the impact that we see it has in people's lives. But games also, as we know, connect people in ways that are sometimes impossible otherwise. And again, we saw that during the pandemic in many ways. And I think many more people who weren't familiar with games perhaps saw that as well. So we look at just the way in which the incredibly powerful work that SpecialEffect does really have an impact, and it enables people really to connect and to have all kinds of abilities together, but also really importantly, to have a sense of agency. And it could also be whether it's enabling people with immense social anxieties or other kind of issues that they feel that they can practice and socially connect in different ways and in more supportive ways in these digital realms. And it's also, I think we're seeing some really interesting research coming through based on real play data about how games are positively and gameplay is positively linked with positive mental well-being, instead of some of the negative stories that we hear that we know is not necessarily based on real data or robust research. So they can really profoundly change our lives for the better, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Games can and should include everyone. We are a global industry. We are globally exporting all over the world. We have clusters of incredible companies in this country, in the UK, all across the UK, making and selling games. We have more than 3 billion players globally. And this is why we need so many different people telling different stories and making the kinds of games that are going to appeal to different kinds of people from different perspectives, different experiences of the world, from different backgrounds. At UKIE, we recently launched the second census for the industry, which we really hope you fill out before November the 19th. And alongside the Raise the Game pledge, which by 2022 in February, we want to reach 200 companies signing up, we really hope that we can create a more inclusive industry. We also have with Intergames, the Video Games Ambassador Scheme, which is a network of school speakers and volunteers that go into schools and act as role models, no matter what job you do, in order to inspire the next generation and to see people like them working in this wonderful industry. And because it's really important that we continue to blast away these horrendous stereotypes that are just so outdated about games, about who plays games, about what games are. And as an industry, I think we can do a little bit more work in stopping using loaded words that are just outdated, that excludes people, I'm afraid, like casual gamer and even gamer itself. Some people don't identify as gamer, we just play. We've also made brilliant strides in this industry in baking in accessibility features right from the get-go, which makes games really for everyone. But we do need to do more and make those features a permanent feature. Games are not just the purveyors of fun. They are the purveyors of powerful ideas. This is, again, why diversity on screen, in on-screen characters and stories and themes in our games are so important to help people understand difference and get a different perspective. It's also why the industry is so active around the world in doing some powerful actions, taking powerful actions to try and combat climate change and negative climate change. And this is really incredible to see through the UN's Playing for the Planet Alliance, which so many companies have signed up to. At UKIE, we're also running a Green Games Summit in 2 weeks' time. In October, which we'd love to see you sign up for. It's completely virtual. It's also why the Raise the Game pledge, which I mentioned earlier, has a pillar about on-screen representation. But it's also why games are really feared. They are feared because games give people agency. They're feared because they are taking eyeballs and attention away from legacy media. They do encourage critical thinking and for people to be critical. And some think that learning new ideas or being exposed to difference can be dangerous. It's not. It's what builds community. And I don't think we even understand the power of our games and the power and the full potential that our medium has for communication and communicating different ideas. It isn't just the games themselves either, by the way. It's everything around games. It's the 17 billion hours watched on Twitch in 2020, for example. Games tools and those who make games are inventing the future. This is innovation that we see all over the place, bleeding into film, whether that be virtual production, whether that be the new job roles that we're inventing all the time, whether that be how games tools, technologies, techniques are used in medical research, in treatment and training, in therapy. It's about the machine learning tools, the procedural generation technologies that we create that, again, bleed over into other applications. The very nature of value is being reinvented through NFTs. We are reinventing economies and events and entertainment and sports. But we need more people in this industry inventing this future for everyone. We need diverse people to continue to make it inclusive future. Because games are giant simulations for giant problems, we need to recognize the power of the games that we make, the power of systems that we're creating, and what they're learning about us when we interact with them. Games are so exciting because they can be used to simulate and to help solve problems or think about big problems in different ways. And we can harness that artificial and human intelligence in really effective ways for the future. We know that games are already used to train artificial intelligence for cars and all sorts of areas of science. Let's see how far we can take that. Maybe if more games were used in schools and systems thinking was taught more in schools, or games programming was more mainstream, we perhaps would solve problems quicker as society, because systems thinking is going to be an absolute critical literacy for the future. And by the way, we see this demonstrated when we see BAFTA Young Game Designer competition entrance, which, by the way, opens in November. These awards are for young people, and they constantly remind me of how young people use games to understand themselves and the worlds around them, to simulate how they feel about the world around them or issues that they care about. But again, it's important that these systems that we're creating are not replicating biases that exist elsewhere and in life in general, and that they are empathetic systems designed with humans in mind. Games do help you escape and cope. 62% of UK adults played games during the pandemic, according to Ofcom. And as an industry, we ran several campaigns throughout the last 18 months, including giving away 100,000 free games to NHS workers during the pandemic. And we had amazing stories of how this really helped support key workers and NHS workers and their families. Before the pandemic, mental health was the biggest public health issue in society. And again, during the pandemic, UKIE tried to really focus a lot on supporting mental health and promoting the fact that games can help with mental health issues. And again, we're getting involved in Play and Talk weekend next weekend, which just encourages people to play with someone and to talk while you play, because games can be perfect social objects around which to gather and to connect. Games give you a sense of control when you've lost control in some areas of your life, particularly if you have some kind of life-limiting condition. So games can be incredibly transformative to help you escape, but also to help you cope. I found VR during lockdown to be my escape, an incredible escape, just sitting by a beach or just solving a puzzle. And I want more of that. The games make you smile across the generations. We know that, again, during lockdown, so many more people came back to games and so many more people discovered games across generations. The fastest demographic for people who play games in Europe is 40 plus, and it's 40 plus women, by the way. But what the pandemic made me realize when I was trying to cross the generational divide with my own family is that onboarding needs to be so much easier. We assume a lot of technical knowledge in games, and the games that really shone, I think, during lockdown for people made it really easy for people just to join in. So that is why I believe, I know I cheated, there's only 9, but I do believe that games are the most powerful medium in the world in the 21st century. And I am in awe of all of you who make and sell these games and are part of the industry, and the people who are going to be a part of the industry who might be watching now. And anyone who continues to be ignorant of this medium or looks down or patronize this medium needs to stop. Enjoy the evening, everybody.
Here. Yeah, some great advice. Thank you very much, Joe. Yeah, I've been asking people for questions, and you've spoken so much sense that I'm getting comments back like, no questions, just enjoying it. And Mr. Stephen Hay, a good friend of ours, just obviously pointing out that you're making some great points, and everyone in the industry should be proud of what they do. So I don't actually have any questions from the audience yet. Feel free to shout, just put them in the YouTube comments. One from me though, your earlier point about games tools, sort of inspiring and reaching out into other industries. I mean, that's something that I've always felt we've never made the most of. It's one thing waiting for other industry, the film industry, to come to us and go, oh, Unreal Engine, yeah, can we use that? And such like. But is there more we can do as an industry to shout about our achievements and our tools and technologies that we already use to inspire other industries to use them, do you think?
I absolutely think so. And I actually think the greatest potential is in the cultural sector. I am a trustee of Historic Royal Palaces, and they're doing some incredible work to bring history alive. And that is one of the things that I have noticed throughout the whole kind of pandemic, is this catch-up game that a lot of other sectors, particularly in the culture and heritage sector, are having to do. And I just think there's so many techniques and tools that we could be lending our expertise to. But I also think there's a point about measurement and about trying to kind of understand where these spillovers happen, because we're also focused on just getting our games done and getting those technologies made and constantly iterating and innovating. And I think sometimes, again, it's probably what a trade body is there to do, which is to help tell that story of the power of the innovation that can help support success in other sectors. And virtual production was the key one that we started talking about right at the beginning of the first lockdown, that now is being talked about properly by film and TV in the UK. It was in Hollywood for a long time, but now people are seeing the potential.
Absolutely, yeah, and no one can accuse you or UKIE of not championing the industry and doing exactly that. So thank you very much for that. I don't have more questions, but I've got one person that's disagreeing with you. They've raised an argument, and they said they've played Super Mario Brothers, but they're still terrible at plumbing. I mean, how do you explain that?
Yeah, no, I am too, and so are the people who've just done my kitchen twice.
Oh, ouch. Oh well, they're not going to get their 100% score if they've got to do it twice or three
Certainly
times.
not. They definitely need to level up.
Yeah. Brilliant, Joe. That's been fantastic. Brilliant points. Absolutely, we should all be proud. We should be proud of SpecialEffect, and I know particularly the point about people associating as people that play games rather than as gamers is really valid, and I think that's something we can all improve on. So, thank you for making that.
Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Great. Thanks very much, Joe. Good night. Okay, so halfway through Joe's talk, Nick from SpecialEffect let me know that we have now hit £10,000 in donations. How amazing is that? So thank you very much for the donations. Obviously, we're keen to get that as high as we can. So the link is scrolling along the bottom of the screen, justgiving.com/fundraising/one special night 21. Do get on and give a couple of quid if you can. It all goes to a brilliant cause. We've already raised a ton of money, which is fantastic. But every little bit more will also help. For all our future speakers, there maybe will be more opportunities to ask questions or to disagree rather than us all frantically nodding and agreeing with Joe's very salient points. So do just put questions in the YouTube chat. Still to come, we've got a bunch of great speakers. We've got Tone from Mag Interactive, James from Xbox, Imre from Bossa Studios, Kirsty from SwipeRight, Kieran Holmes-Darby from Esports, and Peter Moore from Unity. Unfortunately, Maria from Us Two, who was hoping to speak, and we did a connection test just yesterday. She's come down ill today, so Maria's not going to be able to join us, unfortunately, but everyone else has got plenty to say, so we're not going to be shy on that front. So moving on to our next speaker. Aside from having to work with me at Channel 4, our next speaker has had a long and illustrious career at the likes of the BBC, Bizarre Creations, Outplay Entertainment, and he's now studio manager at Mag Interactive in Brighton. Please let me introduce Mr. Tone Brennan. Tone.
Hello there, how you doing? It's the first time I've heard it called illustrious.
Well,
long's right, but illustrious, I'm not so sure.
we've got to give you something back for coming on tonight, you know. Great. Over to you, Tom.
All right, cool. So assuming everyone can see my screen, let's go. My name's Tone. I'm the studio head for Mag Interactive's Brighton studio. And I think, like Joe said, it's a real pleasure to have been asked along to speak tonight. And I found it surprisingly nerve-wracking. So I hope that you all enjoy my hastily cobbled together slide deck. First things first, who even are Mag? We're not, I don't think we shout enough about who we are and what we've done. So we're a successful mobile developer and publisher, founded in 2010 in Stockholm. And the company's games have been downloaded more than 350 million times. Every game released by Mag has reached a multi-million player base. One of Mag's core values when it was founded was to combat cultures and practices that I guess felt unfulfilling at previous companies. So Mag's taken a very steady, focused approach to how the company works and grows. The Brighton studio is part of that. It's an important part, and it works in collaboration with Stockholm while it maintains its own identity. Hopefully, Colin is about to play a wee video about the Brighton office now.
Mag has a great culture. We don't crunch. People have real ownership of their projects and tasks. People have real creative freedom.
It's never about getting ahead or anything like that. It's always kind of looking at what's good for everyone.
We have a great office here in a great city. We're working on an ever-increasing variety of different types of games. If you like working on mobile games, and if you're a Unity programmer or an artist, whether you're an animator or whatever, there'll be something to tickle your fancy here.
It's that kind of international company with a smaller start-up-y feel where people own their work.
We've had 250.
Oh, good. Yeah, it cut off. Okay, that's good. So what do we make? We've got a suite of live games, including games like New Quiz Duel, which is the second most successful quiz game in the world. Ideally the first one, but we know we're working on it. We've got Wordsy, a really fun word game that's growing, performing really well. We've got Word Domination, which takes Scrabble games to the next level, and we've got in our pocket the App Store phenomena that is Ruzzle. That's done really, really well for us over the years. So, but obviously we can't just rely on these games. We've got lots of exciting new things in development, and MAG's not just a word and trivia game studio. Found success with those, but we've got a lot more exciting new games in development that aren't really what you'd expect us to make. We might have a sneak preview here. No, sorry, we didn't. But watch this space. There may be something coming soon. So now you know who we are. What I'm actually going to talk about is I wanted to lean back into MAG and just outline some of the most important pillars that make the company what it is. What makes MAG different from some of the other companies that Colin listed that I've worked for? And could these strategies work where you work? Hopefully it's going to be useful. And it boils down to a few simple principles, which I've learned over the years are really easy to say, but really hard to make stick. So Joe had a list of 10 things. I've only got four of the most important things that we at MAG hold dear and operate by. Number one is trust. It's a word that's used too much by companies, I think. Ask yourself if you're really trusted at work. Where does that trust end? Maybe it ends at the limit of your job description, and that's fine. Or maybe it permeates through every element of how you engage with the place you work. So here's something that we do at MAG that maybe felt a bit weird when I first joined. As an individual, are you trusted to approve your own holidays? Now I'm established there, it feels like it's a good test and something that says a lot about how the place you work sees you. If it values you enough to trust that you're capable of understanding the project and game requirements, and it trusts you to be able to bring up your time off with your team, and it trusts the team enough to be able to say, if it's a problem and you can work it out, then you're probably onto a good thing. I mean, it's a simple example, but we try to make this permeate through everything we do. Same with transparency, which took me a while to adjust to when I joined. Everyone talks about being transparent, but only about the stuff that you want to tell people. I'd say that at MAG, we're as transparent as we can be without falling foul of any laws. If you ask a question, any question, you'll get an answer by someone who should know the answer. Sometimes the answer might be, I'm not allowed to tell you, but you'll get an honest, open answer, and we'll listen to you and discuss it openly. And this is actually more challenging than you think it might be. It removes a level of secrecy that I've definitely been part of at other companies, whether that's for game life or death decisions or resourcing puzzles that are often kept secret because we're nervous that someone might not like the answer. But now we can know that we can, if we're fully transparent, we can have an open discussion and we can trust the people we're speaking to understand what's going on. What it does encourage you to do is to park your ego. And I think that's something that I really started to appreciate now. I think ego parking is a great exercise, and I really recommend it. Next, responsibility. It's a dangerous word. At other places, I've seen it work like, have you been given far too much work to do, and it's been called responsibility, or have you been lined up as someone called responsible, so we know who to blame? We just ask people to always do the most valuable things for your team and your company. We already know, we trust to be able to do outstanding work. We're transparent, so we all know what success or failure looks like. And because we trust, we feel safe to be able to make these decisions without anybody feeling that responsibility is a trap. And we've got drive. There's no point in having all of this trust, transparency, and responsibility if the company is not going to succeed. And that drive to contribute to MAG, drive to be part of the culture, is something that we work really hard on making sure that everybody we work with understands. Most people I know work in games because they have that drive, but in combination with trust, transparency, and responsibility, it makes a pretty good mix. And we work hard to get it to work well. So a company with priorities like this helps to alleviate something that I know lots of people suffer from in games, and that's imposter syndrome. Almost everybody suffers from that. I suffered from it tonight at the thought of speaking to you all. But understanding this makes it all the more important for it to be supported in the workplace, so people can do their best work if they feel safe. If you feel trusted to do your best, you have transparency about what's going on, you know that responsibility is not a stick to beat you with, and that your drive is commonly shared around the team, then it's easier to feel like you're psychologically safe to do your best work. And it's built up, the safety is built up by knowing where you are and knowing that you're supported. And if you feel safe, the imposter syndrome subsides. And that's what the important thing, I think, behind all of these pillars are, to reduce that. So if I was going to summarize all of this, I think it would be that humility is really important. And that's something that we take really seriously at MAG. Having the confidence to approach a problem and confidently or humbly embrace the fact that you or the people you work with have never done something before. You don't know how it's going to work. It opens up the opportunity to collaborate and create better solutions. It can be exciting and exhilarating doing something like this, but having the humility to be able to listen to others and put their interests, experience, and values equal to yours is really important and difficult to do. I don't know him, obviously, but I like to imagine this is what Keanu Reeves is like. So we should all just be a bit more Keanu. And this kind of brings it all back around to SpecialEffect and the great work they do. It defines the approach that they take with any of the people they help. They approach a need or an opportunity to help somebody feel better, feel good, feel equal, with the humility to listen to their experiences and needs and then help them to find the right solution. And that's how they work. And it's great to see the work they do. And I think because SpecialEffect and MAG share these values, it's tied into why we've been so happy to support them over the past 5 years. So that's me. I'm all done. Thank you very much. Good luck, SpecialEffect, and play some MAG games tomorrow if you want to support them. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Tone. And in my meager attempt to be a bit more like Keanu, I'll say that was totally bodacious, dude.
It was.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty good. Yeah, I'm all right with that. I'm more of a John Wick man myself, but that didn't really feel very appropriate for tonight, to be honest.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, a lot of those points are really interesting. One of the things I remember from years ago was someone that joined us from Sweden saying that Swedish laws, Swedish companies are just more open in general. I mean, is that partly where this has it basically come down from? You know, what the parent company of MAG have seen work in Sweden?
Yeah, I think there is a Swedish cultural thing that really helps to kind of permeate across. There's a very matter-of-fact, open way of discussing things that I think is really refreshing in a lot of cases. And I know that the founders of the company, they felt it was really important to keep this, I guess, like a flat structure across the company to allow people to feel like they're part of it. I mean, it goes all the way down to the fact that in the studio, you're not supposed to wear your shoes. You wear slippers or socks because it helps everybody to feel like your feet are on the ground and everyone's on the same level. And it's that kind of detail and commitment to it permeating through the whole company that I think it's difficult to do. It takes a lot of time and effort and attention to maintain it. And I think it's good that it's at the forefront of how we work.
That's a really good point. It probably keeps the cleaning bills down as well if nobody's dragging mucky feet, so it's a win-win.
Definitely, absolutely.
One very good question from Andres Rojas. How does the culture impact the outcome? In terms of do you see better games, bigger games, more efficient games?
I think it tends to result in better kind of qualitative decisions from the teams. It means that a team can kind of can decide what they want to do. There's an open debate, and they can move forward knowing that they've got the confidence of the rest of the studio. So it means that it kind of reduces any hierarchical bottlenecks, I suppose. It gives the freedom to move more. Success is based on lots of things, whether it's collaboration between the different departments. It's not as simple as just making a great game in free-to-play mobile. It's all about the marketing and the UA and the support we can do for that as well. And knowing that you can trust marketing, and marketing can trust the dev teams to be working on the right things at the same time. It helps, really helps.
Okay, great stuff. Brilliant insights. Tone, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Great. Cheers. Good night. Okay, just a quick reminder about our donations. So the link is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Please do give if you can at all. The link is justgiving.com/fundraising/one special night 21. And if you've not already registered, you do want to register, because everyone that's registered gets entered into the prize draw for all the amazing prizes that we listed at the start. So if you don't have the Eventbrite link to hand, if you go to osn.gamesjobs.live, that should redirect you there. So get registered and make sure you get your place in the raffle for later on tonight. And do keep the questions coming. I want to keep the questions sort of related to the talk. So sorry, I'm not going to put questions about jobs and things like that to our speakers tonight. We'll do that on other events. But give me some questions related to what people have been talking about, and we'll try and put as many questions as we can to people. So still to come, we have Imre from Bossa Studios, Kirsty from SwipeRight PR, Kieran from Excel Esports, and the one and only Peter Moore from Unity. But next up, our next speaker has been at Microsoft for 13 years, working his way up, and he is now the Xbox business lead for UK and Ireland. Gives me great pleasure to bring in Mr. James Butcher. James.
How are you? You all right?
I'm very good. Thank you for joining us.
No problem at all. 13 years. Thanks for reminding everyone of that one.
It doesn't look a day over 15. Don't worry.
Thanks very much.
Great, thanks. I'll leave everyone with you.
Yeah, of course. Well, hello everybody, and first of all, I think everyone has said this, but thank you very much for having me. I'm super honoured to have really been asked to share some of our Xbox Game Pass insights at such like an important event, and SpecialEffect is dear to our hearts here at Xbox, as it so, I guess, clearly embodies our operating principles of gaming for everyone, and this notion of, when everybody plays, we all win, and now that means accessibility is really at the forefront of everything we do, and our aim is ultimately to make gaming as accessible as possible. And there's a lot that Xbox and frankly the entire industry do towards this goal, and I'm proud of the diversity that we're starting to see in games, and the ways of playing are starting to expand, and safety on platforms are really starting to get there. But today I've got a lot I can talk about that all day, but today I've been asked to really talk about how kind of Xbox Game Pass is making gaming more accessible, and the insights that we're seeing with this relatively new subscription service. So before we get on into the specifics, I firstly wanted to touch on our vision at Xbox and kind of what we all march towards as a business. Because I've been at Xbox for about 6 years now, and this vision has pretty much remained consistent, which is great. All good visions should. And this really underpins everything we do. It's all about enabling gamers to sort of play the games they want with, frankly, whoever they want, wherever they are. And whilst this vision of customer choice and ubiquitous access of games feels kind of, I guess, consistent with other verticals, movies and music, it's a lot more complex in the gaming vertical. And when I think about the key kind of components or dependencies in Xbox achieving this ambition of broad gaming accessibility, I kind of boil it down to 4 kind of key areas and 4 dependencies I think about. And the first one, rather predictably, is actually console and kind of having that established console business. It's super important for us as a business because we have a solid understanding of gaming behavior, and also we are able to have that kind of consistent high fidelity gaming experience, which we really use to showcase the art of the possible with our content. And the next dependency is unsurprisingly content. And spoiler alert, they all start with a C, just for consistency here. But having a wide variety of first-party studios and third-party publishing partners and other studios produce that diverse range of content is absolutely crucial in striving towards true customer choice. And you will have seen that we've been expanding our portfolio with, and that's why we've been doing it. It's about building great games across a wide variety of genres. And the third dependency, which is super important. Actually, Joe touched on this as well, is around community. This is where gaming is fairly unique. I think we obviously saw huge spikes in gaming as a company over the past year, and confirming really the important role that gaming played in enabling people to socially connect. And I love this next statistic. Our Xbox gaming lead globally, Phil Spencer, confirmed that at the beginning of lockdown, our multiplayer network, Xbox Live, helped forge over 270 million new friendships, and which is just a number that blows my mind every time, and it just shows the importance of that community and this medium as a form of social connection. And having an established gaming community coupled with the infrastructure to support broader network expansion is critical when thinking about playing with the people you want wherever you are. And it is also meant that a service like Xbox Game Pass, actually, you have this ready-made community there as part of your membership, so you can there to kind of go and forge new friendships and connections. Finally, the 4th C, and perhaps one of the more important technical components when we think about the next generation of gaming and playing games wherever you are, is cloud. And Microsoft is a cloud-based company with a global footprint, which really enables the support and the growth and the development of services such as Xbox Game Pass and Xbox game streaming. Now, when we think about kind of shifts and kind of paradigm shifts, I think technology has ultimately allowed us to realize this vision of ubiquitous gaming. I think we're really starting to see a paradigm shift at Xbox where we're moving away from this kind of device-centric way of thinking about a business model. So, console in the middle and attaching kind of games or accessories all around the outside, to one that really and truly orients itself around the gamer. So we don't go and talk about necessarily how many consoles we sell in any given year. It's more about like how many players are playing on Xbox with Xbox content, no matter what device they're on, and how long are they playing, total players and total hours. Those are the kind of the key axis that the kind of the business measures kind of, I guess, performance and growth. Now, for those of you who really don't know what Xbox Game Pass is, Xbox Game Pass really helps us to fulfill that promise to customers around offering like a very broad choice of games across multiple devices, and to provide access to that broad library of just first party and third party games at a low monthly price. Now, we've learned a lot since launching Xbox Game Pass, and I was asked to touch on some of the key themes of how we found it ultimately removes those barriers excuse me, for gamers. And really a key dependency for success from my perspective is an audience-based one. It's recognizing that gamers are different and play on multiple devices. I mean, originally we launched this service as a subscription for your console, which really enabled you to download and play those titles on your Xbox. But then, we recognize that PC gamers are different. PC games are different as well in the way that they're curated, and so we introduced Xbox Game Pass for PC. Again, with that specific curated library for PC gamers. And it was important from launch to ensure that, I guess, Xbox Game Pass was isolated to devices where gamers could really experience that same high fidelity gaming as they normally would when they played any other game. But recently, and again, thanks to that technological shift, we introduced Xbox Cloud Gaming, which really took the experience off console and PC and enabled, I guess, the console quality streaming experience streamed to mobile devices via a browser at xbox.com/play. So again, ultimately making content more accessible than it has ever been before. You didn't need to go and buy a console. You can go and potentially play those games on an iPad or another mobile device. And thanks to our cloud infrastructure, coupled with where things are going with 5G and fiber optic broadband penetration across the UK, we're recognizing now that players are playing across multiple devices, and you can either kind of, if you're a console gamer, you're a console gamer. If you're a PC gamer, you're a PC gamer. But if you are one of those gamers who play across multiple devices, there's also that subscription which ties everything together in the form of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. Now, in terms of insights, I think one of the great benefits of this large shared library is discovery. And discovery is a key word here. Like our gamers love the blockbusters, they love Forza, they love Minecraft and Sea of Thieves, but with this kind of deeper catalog, this more expansive catalog and choice, coupled with smart recommendations from our platform, much like a Netflix recommendation engine, we're starting to give a platform to different genres and different stories and different characters. And I personally love looking at our charts every week and seeing kind of engagement. I love seeing titles like Tell Me Why and Ori and 12 Minutes and even Farming Simulator. They're showing up as like our most played games, and this is the shared library that brings really the community together. And if you found an amazing game in Game Pass, there's a good chance that your friends have it too. And with many devices now supporting kind of that multiplayer community, like with Xbox Game Pass Ultimate Plan, you have what you need to really play together now. And in the last 18 months, again, we touched on this earlier, we've really seen how valued these remote but highly social experiences can be. I'm already way over time, so I'll speed up a little bit. Just wanted to conclude that, I think we have seen that ultimately Game Pass has made games way more accessible for our community and for new gamers to Xbox. And what's interesting is that we're starting to see our gamers explore more genres, genres which they will never have tried before previously, which is resulting in obviously gamers trying more games. Discover your next favorite game is a line we use in our Game Pass marketing a lot. I think it really embodies that behavior of what we're actually seeing on the platform as well. And finally, we're seeing gamers share more, which is super interesting as well. Like we're seeing them share more with their social following, as well as streaming their gameplay. That behavior is starting to increase as a result of this service. And so it's great to see kind of engagement with the community increasing as a result. So it's just to wrap up, it's encouraging to see those kind of audience trends of discovery and try more content on Game Pass. I'd say as a business, we're still very much in learning mode and continue to attempt to build a service which is, super inclusive and accessible for all, and one that ultimately allows us to achieve that vision of, at where we started really, which is all about playing the games, you want to play with the people you want to play, frankly, anywhere you want to. So that was my 10 minutes of insight on Xbox Game Pass. If anyone did have a question around anything else Xbox related that I didn't cover, or anything wanted to go into Xbox Game Pass in a bit more detail, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm more than happy to carry on the conversation. So thank you very much for having me.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, James. And I've seen a ton of posts in the comments, just people saying how many different things and how many different experiences they've had from being able to play things they wouldn't otherwise have had. Not so many questions, but one going back to the start of your talk. Let me just bring it in the Intron D, just saying the adaptive controller was a massive leap. What about more advances in accessibility options within the games themselves? Is the industry doing more to standardize on some relatively simple things like color blindness or closed caption settings?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I know we continue to try and innovate on. I mean, I first of all, I love the adaptive controller story. It's actually something that was, again, like it was an employee hackathon event where we actually, an employee came up with this idea, and Xbox, released the funds and released the resource to help develop it, and there the Xbox adaptive controller was born. So there's a lot of love and there's a lot of enthusiasm from, I'd say, employees to do more with accessibility. It's a really hot topic at the minute. And when we think about cloud gaming, for example, now on mobile devices, it's a different experience, right? You're not on a 42-inch screen, you're on a mobile device. And so how do you kind of bring in new innovations to make that experience seamless and accessible as possible? So I know we're working on it. There's lots in the pipe, but yeah, I'd like to think that the adaptive controller is just the beginning, really.
Great. And this question, it's on a similar vein, and you might not be able to answer it, but I think it's a great question. So apologies if I'm putting you on the spot. It's from Kieran, who I know is from a developer up in Dundee, just saying Xbox is doing a great job with accessibility features. What are the chances of making those tools available outside the Microsoft family? Is that a political question?
You were right the first time with one that I'm not necessarily informed about to answer, but I can take that one away with me and respond offline to Kieran.
Yeah, well, I think just the fact that Xbox is recognised for doing this, and the fact that there is such a demand for it, I think that talks volumes about the work that's been done. So I think you can take that back and pass on compliments, I think.
Will do. Yeah, thanks for the feedback.
Brilliant. Okay, James, we'd better crack on, but thank you so much for taking time out of your evening.
No problem. Thanks very much for having me, and best of luck with the rest of the event.
Brilliant. All right, thanks, James. Bye for now.
Bye.
Okay, yeah, some interesting stuff, I need to spend more time experimenting with new games on my Xbox as well. So we'll hopefully get to that soon. Just as a reminder, donations are still open and will remain open after this event. We know not everyone can watch this live, so this YouTube link will be staying up. So if you want to watch bits of it again, if you want to recommend other people watch it, the same link on YouTube. I know this is going out on Stream and LinkedIn Live as well, but I'm not sure they're available on Catch Up, but the YouTube link will be available. So anyone that's registered has the YouTube link. Please do pass it on to anyone that might be interested. And if you or they want to donate, even if the live stream has ended, the address to do so is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. It's justgiving.com/fundraising/1specialnight21. I see the donations are ticking up beautifully. So thank you very, very much to everyone that's donated. It makes a real difference to a brilliant charity. And on that note, I'd like to play you another video that tells you a little bit more about the great work that SpecialEffect do.
An Oxfordshire charity has devised online games that people can play with just their eyes. SpecialEffect, based in Charlbury, creates ways of helping people with disabilities or mobility issues play games. Its new Eye Gaze games will be free to use and are helping people around the world come together to play together. Matt Graveling reports.
64 squares, 32 pieces, 2 players. Chess has remained the same for 1500 years, but for some, playing the game is far from black and white. Lucinda is unable to communicate verbally, and yet she and friend Kati in Finland are competing online. And it's thanks to a charity in Charlbury, allowing games to be played using just your eyes.
It is very challenging to be able to make games that are accessible to just your eye movement, because it's sort of the equivalent of being able to control a mouse with your eyes. These games are set up so that even if someone isn't particularly accurate, we can turn that level of accuracy into being accurate enough to play games like chess, like being able to drive a car around a track in space. What we're doing is to actually provide an example for the games industry of this is the way that you could make your games more accessible.
Keeping an active mind is highly important for me. I am currently studying a master's in sustainability, so spend a lot of time focusing on academic work.
It's so important to keep your mind active. It's so important to stay positive. It's so important to be able to interact with people, and that all those things are good for your mental health.
I've got to ask, Mick, have you played Lucinda yourself at chess?
She beats me every time.
So this is it, the big showdown. I'm going to play Lucinda at chess. I'll be using my hands on my inbuilt mouse keypad on the laptop. Lucinda will be using her eyes. And I don't fancy my chances.
I started playing when I was 4 and played competitively to high level. This technology has been incredibly helpful. It gives me an opportunity to have fun and creative experiences in a virtual context.
I am in trouble.
This is the quickest game I've ever had. Maybe you need to practice a bit more match.
So there you have it. In less than 10 minutes and using just her eyes, Lucinda has thrashed me at chess. But thankfully, because this software is available on your mobile phone and also the internet, she can search the whole world for a more worthy opponent. Matt Graveling, BBC South Today.
Wow. I remember the first time I saw the eye gaze technology, it was hooked up to a racing game, and the thought that, and I would also lose, I could lose a racing game to someone just playing just by looking is absolutely incredible. And this is the sort of amazing work SpecialEffect does. So thank you so much to everyone that's donated so far. It's a great cause, and that's what tonight is all about. So we'll move on. Keep the questions coming. Hopefully they're the ones that people are able to answer. I apologise to James for putting questions to him that I knew would be a little bit tricky. Still to come, after our next speaker, we have Kirsty from SwipeRight PR, we have Kieran Holmes-Darby from Excel Esports, and of course we have Peter Moore from Unity. But before all that, our next speaker is best known as the co-founder and creative-in-chief at Bossa Studios, the developer that created Surgeon Simulator, I Am Bread, and I Am Fish. He's recently overseen the Animal Farm game, and now I don't think he can talk about what he's doing next, but let's hear from him all the same. Please welcome Mr. Imre Jele. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. I'll leave everyone in your capable hands.
Thank you. So first of all, I don't know if the other speakers mentioned this before, but the camera is swapped. I don't know, and it's strange. So I'm mirrored. But hello, my name is Imre, and I am here to make a confession. I don't know what I'm doing. Now, many other game developers and creative industry professionals, I've spent a lot of my time trying to figure out what I am doing. And in fact, at Bossa Studios, I was chief what are we doing officer and managed to make some good decisions. But for every good decisions, I also made a lot of bad ones. This is because I don't really know what I'm doing. And I think you don't truly know what you're doing either. This is, I believe, inevitable, but the strange part about it, that I think it is a good thing. Hear me out. Firstly, about game design. We don't know what we are doing. Well, in my humble opinion, we don't know enough. Games can be complex beyond a single human's mind already, but they are definitely beyond our reach when you take into account the immense complexity brought in by every single choice and perspective of every single player. Game design is just too complex for us to be truly on top of every aspect of it. More importantly, games are not just lines of code and pieces of assets. Games are art, and they exist beyond the material plane and the rules of logic. They are shaped by, and in turn do shape, our emotions. The full effect of games will never be completely known because it cannot be known, in my humble opinion. And I love that because it is freeing. It allows us to accept that our design, our games design, will be a healthy mix of knowledge, but also a vague but powerful set of feelings which will guide us forward. Secondly, when it comes to forecasting and some other business affairs, we don't know what we're doing. Many good games failed and strange games have succeeded. I should know, I made both. There is a challenge I presented to many in the past. Pick a breakout hit like Minecraft or Among Us or even Surgeon Simulator. Now, go back in time a year before their launch and find concrete evidence you believe would have stood the scrutiny of a board meeting. It's much harder to do this than you would think. We all try our best to be mindful and make the best predictions we can. Some of you are even pretty good at it. But it's hard, if not impossible, to do this accurately enough because our industry is full of games failing their seemingly slam dunk shot and crazy ideas succeeding against all odds. And I love this too, because it feels we are still pushing into the unknown. There is clearly still a huge space ahead of us to explore and find new, great game ideas which have yet no evidence predicting their success. Thirdly, our audiences. Now, we don't know what we are doing, in my opinion, but let me tell you, players don't know what they are doing either. Henry Ford is claimed to have said that if he asked people what they wanted, they would have asked for faster horses instead of cars. And I've seen players complaining about a weapon being too weak, only to praise the same weapon when the devs just changed the gun's sound effect to something louder. And ultimately, we as developers are just second guessing what our players want. Because even the best surveys and playtests cannot read what is truly going on inside their heads and every bit of influence around them. As scary as this sounds, I love this too. It's because this makes game creation an ongoing conversation between and amongst developers and players. You can't just do it. You have to constantly explore. So here we are. In my opinion, we don't know what we are doing. So the question is, what can we do about it? Now, we don't know what we're doing, but sometimes we just don't care. That's one of the answers. Sometimes we just accept that we don't know what we're doing. We plug our fingers in our ears and shout la 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 as we go through development, then jump off the cliff of launch, hoping for a nice lake to be below us, reasonably free of alligators. There is a saying in Hungary about a horse doing dangerous stunts, explaining that the horse might be brave, or maybe it is just blind. And sometimes we just have to make the game we want to make, even if there is no evidence beyond our own blind creative conviction. We don't know what we're doing, so sometimes we just have to get on with it and work anyway. It's a hit-driven industry, so we only really see the successes. The vast majority of project deaths are unreported and unknown. I have a feeling that actually knowing the real cost versus revenues across the entire games industry would be shocking. And I mean all costs, sweat equity, work of hobbyists, user-generated content, overtime, everything else. We could be paralyzed by that knowledge, or we could just go on and keep trying, making better and better games. Now, big corporations build large portfolios to soak up the damage caused by individual failures, where a single hit can carry the entire portfolio. But as individuals facing the failure of the games we worked on, we just have to stand up, dust ourselves off, focus on what we learned, and move on to fight another day. We just have to get on with it. We don't know what we are doing, but it's a survival of the fittest out there. So what we can do is try our darnest to minimize the role of chance in the survival of our games and our companies. So you can rightfully suggest we should learn a little more every day and slowly figure out what we are doing. And some people make a heroic effort to do so. That pursuit can very easily become unreasonably expensive. Then again, so is making games no one will buy. And sometimes even those who kind of know what they are doing will fail. But we learn a little more with every iteration and with every failure and with every success. That's one small step for a developer, one giant leap for the games industry. This is a noble pursuit, a pursuit of perfection never attainable. It's impossible, but we do it anyway because we care. We don't know what we are doing, so we just have to keep trying new things. These new ideas might fail or succeed, but we just have to keep doing these trials and learn from them. That's the way of innovation. That's the way of evolution. Now, here is what the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has to say about flying. There is an art to flying, or rather a knack. The knack lies in learning how to throw yourself at the ground and miss. Clearly, it's the second part, the missing, that presents the difficulties. Now, we can very easily adapt this to game innovation. There is an art to game innovation, or rather a knack. The knack lies in learning how to throw yourself at the failure and miss. Clearly, it is the second part, the missing, that presents the difficulties when you try to innovate video games. So we don't know what we are doing, in my humble opinion. We try our best to fix that, but it's hard. So why do we even keep trying? Well, because we love games, because we love making games, because our players love games, and because we love it when they love our games. The Beatles told us that there is nothing you can do that can't be done, nothing you can sing that can't be sung, nothing you can say, but you can learn how to play the game. It is easy. All you need is love. We don't know what we are doing, but I do believe the Beatles were right. I believe love is indeed all you need to make great video games. Thank you.
Amen to that. Wow, that was indeed a fantastic motivational talk. Thank you so much, Imre. There's so much to think about there, and it's really interesting that on the face of it, it would be easy to get depressed, but you know, both of us have been around the industry long enough. We've both got plenty of failures under our belt, but the successes and the learnings far, far outweigh the failures, don't they? And it makes it all worthwhile. A couple of questions from me, if you don't mind. One of the things I've always struggled with, particularly when it's younger teams, is when to persevere. You know, you talked about the number of games that fall by the wayside to get canned before they get released. How do you know when to persevere or when to kill something and move on?
We don't know. I think the point is that we don't. A lot of people will try to sell you shortcuts. A lot of people will try to tell you that there is a magical solution. I think you don't. You can, and what you should be doing is discover everything which is discoverable, but accept the fact that you can't know it for sure. I feel like knowing that you can't know everything is freeing, because it gives you this abandon where you can say, well, I can't know everything, so I am going to focus on the things that I can know, and I will know those things really well. You know, recently an indie team pitched their game to me, and during the conversation I mentioned, oh, it's kind of like that game, and they didn't know that game, and I felt that, come on, this is embarrassing. I know reference game top of my mind as I hear your pitch, and you don't. You have not done your homework. You did not learn everything what was possible to learn. So what chances you have to manage the things that you don't know yet? All the crazy things that are going to happen throughout development, when you launch, when you get players, all of those feedbacks. How can you manage that if even what is possible you don't know? So I think that the process here is to learn everything which is learnable and focus on that. Now, obviously, then comes the sensibility of have you play your game and have other people play your game and get into that loop. I find that a big idea is, of course, very important and can carry a game. But there are also a bunch of ideas which on the surface are frankly boring, but the game ends up being amazing because through implementation, that team was just so diligent that they made an originally mundane idea amazing. So oftentimes I feel like the team shouldn't worry about thinking, is it a bad idea or a good idea? I think they should asking, do we have the ability to make this a good idea? And then suddenly they are not checking an unknown market thing, but they're checking their own skills and asking these tough questions of themselves. Now, that's not easier. In fact, it is harder, but I think that's an analysis you can do because you're looking at yourself and not this here be dragons, this dark area on the map.
True. And I love the fact that you've just given us all the remit to go off and just play more games in case there's some reference that we might not understand in a meeting. So thank you for that. I need an excuse to put the spreadsheet down and pick up more games sometimes. The comment you made right at the start about trying to justify the decision to proceed with certain games around a board table. I mean, that's something that absolutely resonates with me, and it's a nightmare. Is there more we can do to that? I mean, there's the old sort of management saying, what can be measured can be managed. Do we need better ways of measuring our audience, our creativity, our output? Is there something more that we should be doing on that side of things?
I think everyone has to find their own way. What fits your development style, what fits your personality, and what fits your audience. There are games that Surgeon Simulator is the perfect example. Let's be honest. If Surgeon Simulator was going to be pitched at a board meeting, it would have never been approved. I mean, it is insane, and it is an absolutely brilliant idea. And so it just had to have the conviction of the team and conviction of everyone at Bossa Studios to think, you know what, this is hilarious. Like, no one would do it, so therefore we must. And that was just us and our thinking. And of course, talking to players and seeing the joy. Again, you have to find your own methods. One method which we were sometimes used at Bossa Studios, and it's relevant to what I said, is that look for the love. I'd much rather if a smaller number of people passionate about the game we're working on than if a large number of people are kind of like it. Because kind of like it is not going to make them buy your game. They're not going to make it install and play your game. Love will, and love also convince their friends to also play. And so oftentimes it's an interesting venture that when you do play tests and you get numerical data, is to look at the data. And for example, one way to analyze it is that you simply ignore anyone under who gave you less than 8, 9s, or 10s out of 10s. Because really someone who would never love your game, they're never going to love your game. But people who love your game, that's what matters. And is there enough of them? Is there enough of an audience for compared to how expensive it is going to be for you to develop the game? So look for the love in your team and yourself, and look for the love in the audiences. I know that these are not easy to sometimes to put in spreadsheets, but I think that's what's going to carry the development, and that's what's going to make a game a success.
Great. So, as the Beatles said, all you need is love. It's as simple
Indeed.
as that. Perfect. Imre, that's been absolutely inspirational. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that. I've learned a lot, and I can see from the comments that everyone else has really appreciated it. So thanks very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks. Good night. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Plenty of food for thought there. Difficult one to ask questions about because it's kind of mind-blowing stuff. But as we go through our remaining speakers, do keep shouting out with questions in the YouTube, and I'll try and pick questions that I understand and I think are appropriate for our speakers. So keep them coming. If you've not already donated, the link is scrolling along the bottom of the screen, justgiving.com/fundraising/1specialnight21. I got a message from Nick at SpecialEffect saying we were just a kick in the teeth off of £11,000. And I think a couple of people had donated to last year's fundraiser, so it's actually a little bit higher than it's showing. So that's fine. We'll sort all that out. But thank you so much for the donations. It makes a massive difference. Really appreciated. And we'll keep a running total on how that goes. So we've still got a few brilliant speakers to come. So let me introduce our next speaker, who earned her stripes as head of PR at long-standing PR firm Indigo Pearl. And then 7 years ago, she set up agency SwipeRight, which has been nominated for MCV's Best PR and Comms Team 2 years in a row. So please let me welcome Kirsty Enfield. Kirsty.
Hello. Hi, Colin.
Hello there. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
No, it's a pleasure. Really, really excited to be here, and still kind of starstruck by all the speakers that you've got. So don't know how I've made the list, but thank you.
You're up there with the best of them. You absolutely are. So I will get out of your way and over to you.
Excellent. Thank you. It's also very hard to follow Imre's extremely motivational talk. So I have got a few slides, which I'm going to share. Hopefully everyone can see that. So yeah, thank you for inviting me, SpecialEffect. It's really an honor to take part in your event. It's also incredibly rare to be given a chance to talk about pretty much anything. So rather than talking about PR, which is obviously my area of expertise, I thought I would talk a little bit more about sort of behind the scenes about what went on into building the company. Mostly because in PR, I'm very used to sort of talking about our wins. And it's really rare for us to have an opportunity to talk about some of the challenges and learning that we faced. And as Imre also mentioned, you know, a lot of the time, we don't know what we're doing either. I definitely didn't know what I was doing when I set up the company, and I'm still learning now. So firstly, a little bit on my background. I've been in games PR for over 12 years, always on the agency side, and set up SwipeRight several years ago. And the name was actually created from a friend of mine over a fantastic production company called Double Jump. And it stuck, and I'm very glad that it did. At the time, we were the first agency to offer dedicated esports communication services, so media training pro players, press experiences at tournaments. And while we look after all sorts of video games communications, esports was an area that was still sort of finding its legitimacy. It was also something that really excited me. And it's an area that people on the comms side weren't really sort of playing in at that time. And our start was very, very slow. So we stayed at about 5 to 6 people for the first 4 years. And then as our clients offered us bigger retainers for longer periods of time, we were then able to expand. We're now at 20 people. We have an office on Oxford Street, which I never thought I'd get. And we look after some really fantastic brands, from Red Bull to PUBG Mobile to ByteDance. And I view every year that we're able to grow even a little bit, and able to work on fun things that we really enjoy as a win. But this year in particular has generated some fantastic results. So 100% client retention, that is obviously sort of one of the biggest wins, but attracting talent outside of our industry from really fantastic agencies across automotive, sport, consumer. And then finally, for me, it's when we became award-winning, it wasn't just for our growth, but it was for our company culture. And that was something that we had to dramatically change over the last year. And I believe that the shift in how we handled our company culture and our structure directly related to all of these results. So in terms of those improvements, it was improvements to team well-being, which included things like mindful mornings, so offering everyone an additional half day off a month, so people could spend time running errands, more time sleeping in, whatever it was they wanted. We also created more of a flat structure. I was always very used to working within a hierarchy, and I found that was actually quite limiting in terms of sort of how people give feedback, but also how people were mucking in. And I think it's almost quite archaic for people to say, you know what, that task isn't at this level, whether that's sort of like at a senior or sort of more of a junior position. And having more of a flat structure really helped us to communicate a lot better. We tried to give back, obviously, supporting SpecialEffect where we can, but working with additional charities such as Help for Heroes. We supported new talent. So we started working with a few different graduate schemes. And that was also really important because we were able to then sort of start recruiting from the ground up. And I think something that a lot of companies do, where they sort of hire kind of above different team members, can, it can create a little bit of animosity. And for us, it's really important to recognize the work that people are doing within the company itself and to give them an opportunity to grow. So developing the company sort of from that kind of grassroots element has been really important to us. Training, we have always offered a level of training, but we started to make sure that everyone on the team, from account manager level upwards, anyone that was sort of in a more of a support role, was taking part in mental health first aid training. It was really important for our inclusivity, but also because of the type of work that we do. It's very high stress, a lot of anxiety. So, for us, it wasn't just a case of recognizing, mental health issues that I suppose would, focus more on sort of like, let's say, the depression side. It was more important that we could also realize the different levels of what a mental health issue could look like. Flexible working, we've always been a work from home company. That's something that would never change, but flexible hours as well. If people need to go and, pick up their kids, drop off their kids, whatever it is that they need to do, it never makes sense for us to, or it doesn't make sense for us to have that sort of standard 9 to 5. Investing in HR, something as a small business, honestly, didn't really think about when I started running SwipeRight, but incredibly important. Setting up certain policies from maternity to paternity packages just really helps to give everyone a better level of security. We joined the PRCA, which is a PR trade body, just helps us to sort of benchmark where we're at. Better review structures, so implementing 360 reviews for everyone on the team, including myself. Everyone can say how terrible or great a person is. And then reviewing company culture as well, which is something we do every quarter. We improved our team diversity. 60% of our team are female, and lots of team building. And a couple of examples there. We take Halloween incredibly seriously. 2 years ago, we hired a haunted magician's house, which is in London. You guys can DM me if you want the address and the details. It's great. Last year it was just online pumpkin carving because obviously we couldn't meet up. And ultimately, all of these improvements were made because, they were definitely much needed. But it was off the back of a series of challenges that we faced. And I think outside of all the results, which are, really great, and I obviously love to shout about them, it's really important to note that, it isn't all bells and whistles. When it comes to client campaigns, recruitment, there are always hurdles that you have to overcome. And most of the time when you're growing, it's at much more of a structural level. So when it comes to these challenges that we faced, we found that sort of there were sort of a few recurring problems that came alongside growth. Growth changed the dynamic of everything that we did, how we operated, how we spoke to one another, everything. And the first big challenge really was scaling. Growing a team at the same rate as new business opportunities is actually quite difficult. It's also quite daunting. And typically we've always hired to suit current client needs rather than investing more in, I suppose, say, overheads to meet demand. And the idea of taking on more people and the business just not being there, especially during the pandemic, is actually quite terrifying. And my main priority was obviously job security. So that chart there is, I suppose, the vicious fear cycle that goes on in my head when it comes to recruitment, but also new business. And it's this fear that, I suppose, slowed down some of our hiring process. It meant that we didn't take on as much as we could have, or sometimes we didn't take on the right business either. And that pace of growth, it almost had a reverse effect on me. So rather than being excited, I would feel quite stressed out about not feeling fully in control of absolutely everything that was going on. Made me want to slow down just to make sure that we could stay in touch with our clients and, you know, our current team members as well. And I suppose for me, I haven't necessarily found that happy place, just that happy medium just yet, even after all of these years. But there's definitely been improvements, how we handle recruitment, our onboarding processes. So I know that we're on the right track. And this scaling also led to a change in our company culture and processes. So finding a balance between the flexibility that we originally had and much needed structure is actually quite difficult, especially when, you know, you have a team that's been with you for a long time and then new starters. It's very difficult to keep everyone happy. But then this leads back to sort of one of the improvements that we had to make. So rather than that hierarchical approach where decisions were only made from the top, we decided that every change needed to be considered and discussed with the team. So, you know, we've had more polls in the last few months than I've had in my entire career. And then the second challenge, which actually again goes back to sort of what Imre was saying, is around leadership, and for me also imposter syndrome. So firstly, no one teaches you how to run a company, and those learnings still continue now. I still view myself as actually being very experienced, not in any way someone that people should listen to, which is where imposter syndrome comes from. And I found that a lot of women in the industry feel the same way. This impacted a lot of my confidence, especially when it comes to speaking. Very nervous right now. It impacted how I represent SwipeRight, but more importantly, it impacted how I interact with my team. And I found that I wasn't giving people sort of the right support that they needed to feel confident in their own abilities. And one of the best things that I did was management training. And I think people assume that when you're running a company, you should instantly know how to manage people. That is also not the case. So I went through training to address my leadership style, my behavior, but also patterns that I'd adopted over the years as well. So thinking patterns such as overgeneralizing, dwelling on the negative, rejecting positive experiences, that had an impact on my confidence, but also how I would offer feedback to the team, which affects team morale. Which is arguably, I suppose, my biggest responsibility. And it was those patterns that then started migrating to our different managers on the team as well. So it was really important that I looked at how I needed to change to help the wider team. And this is an ongoing challenge because obviously behavior doesn't just change overnight. But we can see improvements already. In terms of how we speak to one another, how we give that feedback, and also how we address mistakes. And mistakes have also been something that have been incredibly difficult to navigate. The senior members of our team, we've always been used to working in a certain way. We have processes that we know work very well. So even small slip-ups used to make us react really badly. And now, rather than expecting people to work in a certain way, I see all of our managers becoming a bit more open-minded. So we want all members of the team to try out their ideas, to suggest new approaches, and retain ownership, even if they make those mistakes. And then finally, it was changing the perception of who we are as that sort of other major challenge that we've had to overcome. For us, in terms of that perception, it was being viewed as a small gaming and esports agency. We've never done enough to PR ourselves. And for me personally, I've always found it a little bit awkward to do that, to be honest. But it does have an effect on how your clients see you, because they obviously don't know your scale or what you're able to offer. And then the other reason it was, this was also a bit of a challenge, was just finding the time to do this. It's always the lowest thing on the priority list when you have so many other tasks that you've got to do. But it's been really helpful to help us navigate the new business that we want to go after. And also, I suppose, like where the direction that overall that we need to head into as well. So this then, I suppose, comes on to my learnings and my key takeaways. So firstly, so my first sort of learning from all of those challenges was changing the way that we're giving feedback, which can improve the morale of the team. Letting people make mistakes helps them to learn. It makes them feel more responsible and more accountable. Noticing when we're falling back into unhelpful patterns. This could be anything: micromanaging, dwelling on what competitors are doing, being able to say no, being selective, finding the right business, the right partners that work for you. It's actually a good thing. Saying no to certain tasks, or pushing back on, your availability. And ultimately, what we found is that the clients that we work the best with, they also value our time, and they do match our values. So actually saying no has been quite helpful for us. You can't be everyone's friend. This was quite a hard one personally, going from a small team when you are very close and you are everyone's friend to a much bigger team, when it's not possible, but also the dynamic of the team has just shifted. It's quite tough, but it's actually really important to kind of set those boundaries. And then finally, investment in training, or I say finally for this side, investment in training. And this should be for every level, not just for sort of more junior members of the team, but anyone sort of in a senior position. It's so important to keep learning. And even if the value isn't instantly recognized, it's kind of in there, it's in your head. And then in terms of processes, being able to sort of create and adapt your processes it's fantastic for all sides of your business. I never thought that we'd be as structured as we are, but also being able to sort of adapt those processes in line with the team has also been really helpful. Transparency in company operations, as an example, for the way that we handle recruitment, we get people from sort of all levels upwards, really, involved with that kind of process, because it means that it will help with onboarding. They'll get to know who they're working with, and they kind of get a say as well. So that level of transparency has been, it's actually been quite rewarding. And it just means that people understand the decisions that you're making and the rationale behind them. PRing yourself. I obviously mentioned this before, but it's hard to sort of find that balance between being humble, but also, doing a good job to communicate who you are. But it's very important. And developing your company values, which I always viewed as PR fluff, to be honest. But it's actually really great for overall direction. And then finally, just being able to sort of take a break and savor the wins. And I haven't mastered that one. But I've heard it's a really good idea to step back from what you're doing, and then you can come back with sort of a much clearer mind. I'll let you know if and when that one works for me in the future. And thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Kirsty. So it sounds like you've got quite a few wins to savour. I think you do need to master that one.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It's hard to see it when you're in the weeds.
Some brilliant insights in there. I mean, one of the sort of overarching things that jumps out to me is, I mean, I think you've been very open and forward thinking, and it sounds like a lot of your team have as well. Do you look for that when you're hiring? I mean, all these changes you're talking about, can you? Does it matter who the team is, or do you need to get the right type of people in the team in the first place in order to take those sorts of initiatives and that approach forward?
Yeah, I think it's it was quite hard to figure out sort of the best recruitment process, the questions to ask, and it's something that we're still learning. But it is actually really important to us to figure out sort of who that person is. Do they align with sort of what it is that the direction that we want to go in? Are they going to be as passionate as we are? But depending on the level that they're at as well, if they're going to be in a role that needs to support other members of the team, we need to understand how they're going to do that. And what's been really lucky actually is the people that we've recruited who've come from corporate tech backgrounds all the way through to automotive, they've brought on board some processes from their agencies, and they really helped us to grow and to learn. And, you know, I think it's also a case of just sort of accepting that it's okay to change and allowing people to try these new processes as well. And if things don't work, it's not a problem. I think everyone on the team can sort of support at least someone giving it a go. And to be honest, I'd rather someone came forward and offered a suggestion than just stayed quiet the entire time. And typically I found that when people have just stayed quiet, they're the ones that are always the most unhappy because they haven't communicated what it is that they want.
Good advice. And just on you mentioned growth a few times. I mean, is growth always good? Is there an optimal size for SwipeRight or for any organisation, you think?
Well, for SwipeRight, I want to see how far we can grow, and I mean, sky's the limit, right? Let's see. Especially as considering how fantastic the games industry is, right? Like, there's so many different sort of sectors within it. There's no reason why we need to stop at 20. But growth in itself is it's quite difficult to navigate and figure out kind of what size makes sense, and also, I suppose, where to stop, where to slow down. Everything for us always just happened organically, and you know, we've sort of, when we've had an opportunity to kind of come in that we can't say no to, obviously we just, you know, we kind of run with it. And luckily the entire team feels the same drive, and I think that's always been really helpful, because you know, or they'll turn around and say, you know, I do go to the team, and when we have an opportunity come in, say, is this something that anyone's excited by? Like, what do we feel that we can really work with this company, this brand? And sometimes they'll say no, in which case I say no. And actually that's also been really helpful for our growth. So it's becoming more manageable because it's kind of less on me, which is good.
Perfect. Good advice. Yeah, no, just say no more. I like that.
Yeah.
I need to learn that lesson. Kirsty, that's been absolutely brilliant. Tons of great advice. I know I'm going to rewatch that presentation because there was so many points in there, and anyone else is welcome to as well. It will stay up on the YouTube, so rewatch it. And of course, if you're looking for a great agency to work with, then get in touch and see if you can get Kirsty's team to say yes to you. Kirsty, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Cheers. Good night. Wow. Okay. Yeah, there's so much good advice flying around this evening. That was fantastic. We've only got a couple of speakers left. So if you've not registered to make sure you're entered into the prize draw, please do so. Let me just bring up the URL again. If you punch osn.gamesjobs.live into a browser, it will take you there. Make sure you register. And if you haven't already donated, but would like to do so, the link is along the bottom of the screen, justgiving.com/fundraising/one special night. Okay, moving on. Our next speaker co-founded Excel Esports, which has teams competing in the likes of Fortnite and League of Legends. He was named one of Forbes's 30 under 30. So please let me introduce Kieran Holmes-Darby. Kieran.
Colin, absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me on amongst what has been an awesome set of panels. I've sat here listening and writing notes, and I've learnt loads myself. So yeah, really enjoyed, and thank you for having me on. Oh,
not at all. I just do this for myself. I mean, I'm learning tons. I mean, if nobody else watched it, it would still be beneficial for me. But no, it's been awesome, hasn't it? And I have a sneaking suspicion that awesome talks are not done yet. So on that note, I'll hand over to you.
I hope I can follow some of these amazing talks for sure. Yeah, cool. Look, hello everyone. I'm going to share some slides with you all. Yeah, hello, welcome to my TED Talk. I promise not to make this too corporate or anything. Ultimately, we're here to celebrate the wonderful work that SpecialEffect are doing in our space. So I want to keep this as engaging as possible. I do think it's important a little bit to go into a bit about me and my background, not to be egotistical, but to give you guys an idea of who's talking to you. My story really begins with the fact, like many here, that I love playing video games. And by nature, quite a competitive person, and I wanted to compete in video games. You know, when I found the wonderful world of esports or competitive gaming, I was hooked kind of instantly. And actually, playing video games competitively is what really kept me and my brother connected when we were on opposite sides of the country at university. We never picked up the phone and chatted to each other. We'd always hop on, whether it's Halo or Call of Duty or Gears of War, and play competitively ranked games or whatever together. And I think that a lot of people have had those experiences recently, obviously during the pandemic, hopping on with friends and playing games. And for me, competing always makes it more enjoyable. However, I am, and I know Jo mentioned this in her talk, notoriously bad at video games. I'm not very good at them at all. So the question for me and my brother was, how could we channel our passion for the wonderful esports industry into something that, ultimately really adds value to it. So that's where the story kind of begins. And so, yeah, I mean, the story is that the vision for Excel Esports was actually born over a pint in a British pub. That's very true. It's a Wetherspoons pub. My brother and I were sitting there just talking about how much we love gaming and the competitive side of it. And we said, well, look, the UK, we have such a brilliant gaming culture, but there's no one really representing that at the highest level in esports. So the high level goal was to create the UK's best esports organization. However, that's not really what I want to talk about today. It's not really, that's just giving a grounding to the talk. The path to success over the past 7 years of essentially building this business has definitely not been a straight line. And I think all of us can relate to that in one way or another. And I think when you get stuck in to the weeds a little bit, Kirsty was just talking about this, when you get stuck into the weeds and building something and all the stress that comes with that, and you're trying to throw your all into it and your passion, I think sometimes you lose the kind of sight of the core purpose of the journey. And for us, the real purpose was to create meaningful relationships within the gaming community that we were a part of through our work, make Excel a great brand to be a part of, whether you're an employee, a member of our community, a supporter. Just interacting with that Excel brand should add value to you and hopefully make you smile and make your life better in some way. So I think what I've learned along this kind of journey, and the reason I'm talking about this, is there's a lot of noise that goes on and you can sometimes get lost into different things. And I think all you can really do is rely on your own principles to really keep going and keep soldiering on. So Tone actually talked about this at the top of the show and some of the principles in his company. And he was also asked a question about culture, which I talked a little bit about. I've actually created these principles purely for myself, to keep me on the straight and narrow and keep me thinking that I'm doing the right things. Joe had 10 things to talk about. Tone had 4. I'm only going to be sharing 3 of my principles, given the time that we're in. There are actually 8, although always growing. I hope that by the time I retire, there are many, many more than just 8, because I'm constantly learning. But, I hope the reason I'm sharing 3 of these is I hope that some people will get at least some value out of some of the principles that I'm sharing, but also that they're going to inspire people to go and write down their own principles to live their life by, because it's definitely been beneficial for me, at least. I think these definitely apply to business, and I know there's been a lot of the talks have kind of focused on their businesses, but this is not really focusing on my business at all. This is just for me and my life, and I think that they apply to everyday life within friendship groups, communities, families, whatever, but they definitely do apply to business as well. So the first one then we'll talk about is authenticity. It's a word that gets thrown around quite a lot in our industry, and in my opinion, it can't be fabricated. And what I mean by that is I think that, and again, Tone talked about this, transparency is absolutely key. And it is so clear when someone is not being transparent or when someone is not being, authentic. I think that our industry, thankfully, sniffs that out very, very quickly. And I think that's brilliant. And I think that reinforces the fact that authenticity is so important. And I think you've got to be not just transparent to kind of the community or the people around you, but be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself about things that you don't know, or things that you need help with. Like be honest with yourself, and I think that's that will help you be more authentic in day to day. And that means that you can then be yourself, right? And if you're yourself, you're going to be different from the person next to you, and you should celebrate that, because gaming and esports should be inclusive places, and therefore being able to be kind of your true self is, for me, super, super important. And then the last one of this is, don't be above the small things. So, if you're in a position of leadership, that doesn't mean that you can't take the bins out in your office or take the bins out in your house or whatever, right? Like, don't be above the small things, lead by example, get involved, be yourself. I don't know how many other ways I can really put it. The second principle is about culture. It's been spoken about a little bit. Kirsty actually did a brilliant job in the previous talk of talking a little bit around culture. And for me, culture trumps all. Culture is the most important thing that you can really implement into a business, or really just a collective in general, whatever that collective may be. And the culture that I think is super important is one that is generous and supportive to the people around you, because ultimately I think if you foster that sort of supportive environment, that collective is going to have a better chance of success. No bad apples allowed. So I had a different word other than bad apples, but I thought it wasn't appropriate for this talk. So I've called it bad apples. For me, you have to leave your ego at the door. You have to remember that when you're working in a collective, the fight is outside the room. Whatever you're trying to achieve as a collective is against something outside of that room. And in that room, there's no ego, there's no bad apples allowed. And this goes on to kind of the final point, where mistakes are fine, right? Mistakes should be encouraged, and failure should be encouraged, because mistakes are learning opportunities. And bad behaviors, if you get things wrong, you behave in the wrong way, that's okay, right? They're correctable. You can learn from that. But bad characters are not. If you've got a bad character, cut those bad apples out of your life. It will make it so much easier, I promise. And then my final principle, actually, Kirsty touched upon this in the previous talk as well. Celebrate the wins. I think this is so important, because I think we are so quick, just as human beings, to point out our mistakes. And I think we're super hard on ourselves. And I don't think we celebrate the things that go well enough. And I don't think we pat the people around us that do well on the back enough. So work hard. Nothing in life comes easy, unfortunately. You have to work hard, but play hard too, right? Like, have fun, be proud of what you and the people around you achieve together, and yes, celebrate, right? That's what we're all here to do. We're all here to be happy people and have fun, and celebrate our wins. So that's my third and final principle I'm going to leave you with. As I say, there are many more, and I hope that they've somewhat inspired you to have a think about whether any of those relate to you, whether you want to copy and paste some of them into your own life, or maybe you want to just go away and write down some things that that inspire you on a day-to-day basis to live a life of fulfillment. So that's everything from me. Thank you guys for listening to my very, very short TED Talk. And don't forget to donate to SpecialEffect. The work they're doing is unbelievable, and I'm so proud to be a part of this event tonight. Thank you.
Awesome. That was fantastic. Thank you very much, Kieran. A couple of questions that have come in. Actually, one's really interesting, because I think we've got a lot of people in the audience that are looking to get into the industry. Some people looking to set up studios, some already running studios. And particularly with everything being virtual at the moment, this is more a sort of practical thing. But in terms of time zones, I mean, you as far as I understand it, you work with people working across different time zones. That must be a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, we've actually onboarded a lot of people through this lockdown period, which has been very strange to onboard people completely remotely, and, as you say, potentially in different time zones, and actually finally meeting them in recent times when we'll be able, back into the office, and kind of just walking past them and say, hey, forgetting that that's actually the first time I've met that person in person, and then feeling rude about that. But I think that fostering a culture is more difficult remotely, and it is more difficult across time zones. But ultimately, obviously you just have to be respectful of people's time, and you have to project manage in the most efficient way to get the most out of those people's kind of working hours, I suppose. And when there are times to collaborate, make sure you're putting in times for collaboration.
Good advice. And another really good question that's just come up, actually. Let me just bring this up. OP asks, how do you know if you have bad character? How do I know I'm a bad apple?
It's a great question. I think I don't have unfortunately, I don't have a great answer for that wonderful question. And I think that you've kind of got to figure that one out for yourself. I mean, as I say, these are my principles. I think I have a good read on what I think a good and bad character is. And I'm sure that everyone's read is completely different, and that's fine. But I think that, you'll know when someone is not fostering the culture that I was talking about, not being supportive, not being generous, and ultimately is just making your life hell. And those people are not worth the time of day, in my opinion.
Yeah, and actually, someone else has just piped in with exactly what I was going to say. Was the fact that you've asked indicates that you're not. And I think that's very true.
That's a much better answer than what I gave. So thank you, Rob. That's a great answer.
Doesn't rule it out completely. So it's good to always ask. But I also think it's the onus is on managers. Managers have to deliver good news and bad news, and if you need to tell someone they're being a bad apple, then that's a manager's job, isn't it?
Indeed. And look, as I say, mistakes are fine. And actually, one of my other principles is that feedback is a gift, and feedback is great. And if you have to give bad feedback to someone, just be honest with them. Just tell them straight, and they'll appreciate that way more than trying to beat around the bush or whatever. And if they know that you're fostering a culture that is supportive, they'll know that it's coming from a good place and it's coming from somewhere where you're trying to help them grow. That's super important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also say on that you I think it's important to learn to take feedback. There's been a number of people I've either given feedback to individually or as a company, and they go off in the huff and they react badly and they threaten stuff. And okay, fine. You've kind of just proved my point.
Yeah, and it's give and take, right? You have to learn to take it. You don't have to learn how to give it, and you have to give it at the right time for people. But it's super important, and as I say, it's a gift.
Great. And then jumping back to an earlier point you made about making mistakes, and this is something that's been covered a little bit from Imre and others. But I mean, to me, it's absolutely vital. You have the conviction to do something that might not work, but how far do you follow it? How many mistakes can you make in a row before you go, no, I'm on the wrong path completely here?
Yeah, so I think that making the same mistake over and over again is not acceptable. That's where the difference is. Mistakes are, as I say, encouraged and fine, and actually to try something new and fail at it is great, and I think actually fosters innovation and development and all of these things. But learn from those mistakes. They're learning opportunities. They're not just, oh, it's okay that I made a mistake. No, you made a mistake, learn from it, and that's okay. So yeah, I think my answer is, if you're making the same mistake over and over again, you're not learning from it. But follow everything through to the end, right? Like to give it your all, and if you're in the right environment and you're in the right culture, they'll support you up until the point that you all agree that it's time to go in a different direction.
Yep, sounds good. Jumping back, there was a question earlier. Let me just bring it up. CS Diabo asking, how can diversity be improved in esports? I mean, this really applies to gaming as a whole. I mean,
yeah,
what are we doing? What can we still do you think?
I think it applies to gaming as a whole, but I think it's a super good question, because I do think that gaming is more diverse than esports, to be honest with you. And I think that esports has an even bigger diversity problem than gaming. So I think it's a really good question. It's a super difficult one to answer, but I think that there are certain things that we can do. So I think that if we look at, I mean, there's all different types of inclusivity and diversity, etc. But if we look at the gender imbalance in terms of professional esports players, everyone agrees on the goal. The goal is to have mixed teams playing on the biggest stages, because there's no reason why we couldn't have that. But there are slightly different methods of basically how we get there and how we get to that point. And I think that I'd actually like to shout out Riot Games and Valorant and what they're doing with their esports scene. And they just launched a new initiative called the VCT Game Changers, and it's for female competitors or people of marginalized genders to compete in that competition specifically. And what that will do, in my opinion, is create heroes and inspire the next generation. And in time, we will have better and better, female competitors who will then go on, hopefully, to play for teams like Excel in the biggest tournaments in the world.
Fingers crossed. Great stuff. And then also just jumping back, another question of mine from your earlier point in terms of celebrating the wins. Again, this is something that has been echoed tonight. Kirsty said this as well. I mean, how do you celebrate the wins? I mean, what's the best way of doing that?
It's a good question. I think it's make time to celebrate the wins, right? Like actually put out some time to go, we did something really cool here as a team, and we need to get together and somehow mark this in as a milestone of an achievement that we have done, because then you're more likely to remember that win and that achievement. And when you look back, it's a lot easier to refer to those as kind of great parts of the journey. Now, how you do that is again dependent on kind of your team and what your team agree you want to do, right? If you want to go and have a beer, or you want to go out for dinner, or you want to play some games together to mark them out, you do whatever suits your collective. But I think that make time to really like cement that milestone in your journey.
Good advice. Kieran, that's all been absolutely gold dust. Thank you so much for that. I don't know if you have done a real TED Talk, but you should if you haven't already.
I have not. But yeah, it's actually the first time I've ever spoken about principles and anything on anything. So I really appreciate the platform to do it, and I hope that some people got some value from it.
No, I think it's there's been a lot of really useful advice there, and well worth a rewatch, I think. So yeah, many thanks for giving up a bit of your evening to come and give us all that advice.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thanks, Kieran. Okay, we are getting towards the end. We just have one more speaker. I can't quite remember who it is. But before we get to our final speaker, obviously just want to remind you why we're doing what we're doing tonight. We're raising money for the amazing charity SpecialEffect that everyone that we've heard from tonight is a huge supporter of. So we've got another video that I would like to play you, the story of Tom, and tell you a little bit more about what SpecialEffect do.
I'm Tom Clark. I'm 25, and I've got spinal muscular atrophy. Because I have very little movement, my main issue was that I was only limited to playing sort of mouse-based, slow point-and-click games, and it was very frustrating. When I was younger, I had a fair bit more movement, but my brother always used to hammer me at FIFA, and once SpecialEffect came and set me up with the equipment to be able to actually play FIFA again, I really enjoyed the fact that the first time I played him in probably about 15, 16 years. I absolutely hammered him, probably about 6-7-0, so that was quite a feat for me. My way of looking at computer games is that it's a way of getting out of reality. It's, taking me away from my disability and actually, giving me something back. It's giving me my life to be able to actually do what I and lose myself in and love. There's no other way to actually describe it fully how SpecialEffect changed my life.
Great stuff. That is the sort of work that all the donations from tonight are going towards. So if you've not already donated, do jump on to the Just Giving link, justgiving.com/fundraising/one special night 21. And just before we close the registrations for the prize draw, one last chance. If you haven't already registered, get on over to the Eventbrite. If you go to osn.gamesjobs.live, this is your last chance to register. We've got an amazing array of prizes that we will raffle after our next speaker. So do make sure you sign up for that. And just to reiterate from the start of the stream about the One Special Day Steam sale, with tons of amazing games, you want to get onto that. I've had about half a dozen notifications from Steam that tons of games I want are discounted. So again, if you punch into a browser bit.ly/OSD Steam, that will take you direct to the Steam page where you'll find all those games that are currently discounted. So just before we bring on our last speaker, let me just bring back Nick from SpecialEffect. Nick.
Hi Colin, how you doing?
I'm very good. I'm slightly overwhelmed. We have had some amazing talks tonight.
Absolutely.
The insight and and even just the time these people have spent putting these talks together. These are not insignificant people. These are busy people with a lot, with organizations to run and everything, and they've come on late in the evening to give us these talks. Absolutely brilliant. And I think it's testament to SpecialEffect that you've been able to get them as supporters. I mean, how does that happen? How do you go about getting high caliber people like we've got tonight involved in the charity?
It's like some of the chat who know really want to support us. I mean, it's kind of the Irish fundraising model. It's the friendship model. In terms of the people who've been involved in many ways and might go from one company to another, and they seem to take SpecialEffect with them. And it's the stories, I think, and the way people feel engaged, and they just feel like they want to help. I mean, we're not a charity who will stop you in the street and ask you for money. We won't ring you up. We won't send you in the post. But you want to run around London or Edinburgh dressed as a chicken or something the hedgehog, then we're the charity for you. And I think the game industry is known for its innovation, do things differently, and I think SpecialEffect dovetails with that sort of perfectly, really. And we're lucky, in terms of the amount of times people they've seen us and they come back and they ask us questions. It's like, we're very lucky to feel part of the industry as I said at the beginning. And there's random stories. I know with my own daughter, when she was younger, there was somebody who came to SpecialEffect who knew, and she was playing Tim Shaver's game Once Upon a Monster, and somebody who'd seen Dr. Mick, a guy called Jerry, he knew Tim, and he sent him the email, and then he followed us on Twitter, and kind of it went from there. And that's kind of how things happen. It's like Mick, who's founded the charity I work with for over 20 years now. Kind of his passion and the passion of all the team. It's very true and authentic. And there's lots of ambassadors in the chat, Mr. Hay and Abby Plum, just two. And the fact that these lovely people, and yourself, Colin, and the fact that lovely people involved with the charity, I think that's quite magnetic. I think. So we're very grateful.
Well, that's it, and I know the industry feels likewise. The industry feels lucky to have an organisation like SpecialEffect involved, and something it's clearly happy to get behind. It does seem to be a good relationship that works well. In terms of the individuals that you help, how does that work? I mean, I think we heard in one of the stories about someone that had heard of you. I mean, how do people normally come to you, or do you find them as such?
Most of it comes around the beauty of Google and people finding us and people telling about the charity. I know we've been on lots of studio talks before COVID, and actually we've done virtual talks, and people. I did one at Sumo, and about 2 years ago, and there was a nephew of one of the people in the audience that we've helped, and that's how it happens. And it's as Dr. Mick says, a rubbish business model. We don't charge all people in the UK and globally, but it kind of works. And lots of times you'll see parents who know the parents with the children with disabilities, and the good news travels fast, I think, and that definitely happens time after time.
Yeah, no, it certainly seems to, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky enough to see a number of these stories over the years, and I mean, they're always just heartwarming stories. I mean, the difference that you're making to people's lives is just phenomenal. I think I've told this story before, but one time you came up and went around some of the physical events that I ran up here, and we ran the same video, 3 nights in a row at each event, and I'd watched it a couple of times before. But even after having watched it like 5 or 6 times, I was still welling up on stage. I mean, it's just to comprehend the difference that you're making to people is phenomenal, isn't it?
Well, I mean, the fundraising team, and it's not a big fundraising team, but by any stretches, we're just lucky to each other's stories. It's the OTs and the R&D team that make the magic happen. We're just very grateful. And I remember, I think it was in Glasgow. Glasgow, wasn't it? My first trip to Glasgow was brilliant. And I was sharing Finley's story up in Aberdeen, and I was on text this morning with Finley's dad, which is kind of, and it's like, can't wait till FIFA comes out tomorrow, and it's kind of his story. In fact, has inspired many, many people to get involved with the charity, and the fact that they're friends. And as with Tom's story, it's not a case of here's a bit of here's a bit of tech and see you later. It's an ongoing life-going support. We don't charge for it. It's simply down to people on the stream tonight and part of OSD as a whole that we can keep helping people time after time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then just tell us a little bit more about everything else that's going on. Obviously, one special night comes before one special day. We've touched on it a little bit earlier. What else happens on one special day? Who's involved?
There's over 80 partners, which we were so grateful for. And it came from the industry. It was like there was a friend of the charity from a mobile company. He's one of my ambassadors. He's so modest. I won't name him, but he said, "I don't really want to run. Can I give you some money?" And he came up with the idea, and it's sort of mushroomed. So tomorrow there's over 18 mobile companies who are given their UK revenue, and the likes of Rovio, Supercell, Mag, Outplay up in Dundee have joined us tomorrow. So you play the Gordon Ramsay Chef Blast game, that be coming to the cause. Steam sales at over 70 games, I think 23 partners. That's a new thing this time. Tim Woodley and Sam Reed have helped put that together. We've got Xbox matches in George's Park, so Rare Play and Playground. We've got Hutch running the equivalent of the Canadian Grand Prix. Just doing different things, innovation. We've got Sony London Studio they're painting their studio pets, and somebody's having their head shaved, somebody's doing their own cycle ride. The innovation people are doing, and I've probably forgotten loads of people, so apologies. And also there's one special game. So Stephen Hayes in the chat, him and Holly, which has just been amazing. So there's been some fan art from Four Guys, from The Sims and Broken Sword, and the innovation from that is just amazing. And next year's our 15th year, and hopefully we can keep sharing the stories, because sharing the stories is our duty with our supporters, because it's their charity, our charity, and that's been very important.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the moment, we're just waiting for our final speaker. I think we're having some technical problems, so we're hoping to be bringing him on right about now, but we're not quite ready. So actually, if any of our previous speakers are still tuned in, jump back on, and we'll maybe open this up, just because we've got to wait a little bit and just get these technical problems resolved, which is why I'm taking a particular interest in asking Nick lots of things about SpecialEffect at this particular moment. I mean, just generally, I mean, in terms of the industry and accessibility, I mean, something that was touched on in James's talk. I mean, in terms of the tools and the sort of best practice, do you see that is changing just across the industry in general?
Yeah, well, I said, there's so much goodwill out there, and it's kind of, and just the amount of things that you see shared, and kind of special effects I think I would say at the heart of it. The fact that we give free advice to people. It doesn't matter whether a small indie developer through to working with Xbox as one of the organisations in developing the adaptive controller. We've worked in terms of with Logitech, and for me, projects like iMind, the fact that a young person with disability or older person with disability can play Minecraft with their eyes wherever they are across the globe. It's a game changer, and we're just so grateful for the support. But also, there's so many exciting things coming down the line that we can't yet talk about, and the fact that people come to us constantly, that's so lovely. So I'm quite lucky in the fact I just get to talk about it. I don't do any of the hard work, but the kind of, when you see they're so modest, some of our OTs, and they just casually drop something in a meeting that they've done this, it's like, wow. We had a staff meeting internally, virtually last week, and some of the stories were just like pretty amazing. The fact that there was a little 3-year-old little boy out recently, and there's an 85-year-old helped gaming for everybody, and that's what SpecialEffect do. And keep saying it, and I say it again, we're so lucky, and every single person who's donated, who does a run, who does a pub quiz, we're just so lucky. And it's kind of the fact that the likes of EA and Peter was pivotal to that, introduced us to people there, and they're still doing things, and they very much adopt us as their partner charity, and so many people like that. But it doesn't matter the size of the company, it just matters that you care, and I think the games industry definitely ticks that box.
Absolutely. And then I mean, going back to the beginning of SpecialEffect, I mean, how did it start? I mean, because for me it feels like it's been around forever, but it hasn't.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, I was lucky with Dr. Mick and Jele, one of our OTs, and Mark. So there's we used to work at a charity that did assistive technology for education, and I remember being a local pub with Mick about 16 years ago. Said, games are so important. I want to create something, and and hats off to him. He did that, and he's brought us all with us. And the story is just kind of, it's a different kind of charity. It's a friendship charity. It's amazing charities, but we're very quirky in terms of what we do. But we're very passionate, and the fit with the game industry, the innovation, the fun, the escapism is just it's perfect. And the fact that we can do things. I was talking about it's not about the money, but any stretch. And one of my favourite things during lockdown was when we were approached by EA to see if any of our little ones would like to be virtual mascots, and 2 of them did. It's just like, when those kind of moments happen, that you can just, that's the highlight of my job, when those things happen. Yes, Fundraising is brilliant, but kind of some of the stories, and such a close team as well. It's a proper family, and they're so modest, the team, and people involved with the charity have been there since the start, and it's just we're just so grateful.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, everyone I know that I've ever dealt with at the charity has just been brilliant. So I think we're ready to move on. So Nick, thank you very much for jumping in. We'll get you back at the end for the prize draw, if that's okay. But let's say cheerio for now. Excellent. Thank you for that.
Bye.
Brilliant. Okay. So it tells you something, that our final speaker for the evening doesn't have a LinkedIn page for me to check his history. Oh no, he has his own Wikipedia page. He made the jump from marketing big sports firms to the games industry by joining Sega, becoming Sega America's COO, then taking up executive roles at Electronic Arts and Xbox, where he became known for revealing new games tattooed on his arm. I once heard him say that as a kid, he dreamed of playing for Liverpool Football Club, but he seems to have skipped a few steps and ran the whole club as CEO for a few years. But thankfully, he's moved back to a proper job in the games industry, and he is now Senior Vice President and General Manager of Sports and Live Entertainment for Unity. So there is only one way to introduce this man, and that involves me standing up a little bit and telling you that next up we have Mr. Peter Moore. Peter.
Colin.
Thank you so much for joining us.
It gives the game away, my friend.
Ah, it's just fresh. It's really fresh. It's ow, it's sore. It's sore. Peter, thank you for joining us. Can I just hand over to you?
Dude, great. I'm, as I think you know, I've just got a foot plane from Los Angeles. I'm here in Liverpool. Absolutely delighted to join everybody this evening. As Vice President of SpecialEffect, and by the way, seeing Tom Clark again really touched me. Clarky, great Liverpool fan, great friend of mine, no longer with us, but I think embodies and epitomizes everything that SpecialEffect does for people, brings their life back at times, and a lot of the initial work when I first got to meet SpecialEffect when I was at EA was focused on FIFA, and it was such a delight. And Tom in particular always regaled me with stories of being able to beat his brother, and just seeing that video again. It's been a couple of years since I've seen that video, and seeing Tom there. And you may remember, Nick certainly remembers when he passed away the following weekend, I just fortuitously was going to Enfield and I took a photograph of Tom to Enfield with me, and I put him on the seat next to me so he could watch Liverpool with me. He'd passed away the week before. So absolutely delighted to be here this evening. It is such a pleasure to be involved with an organization that does so much for such incredible people that are, despite whatever is going on in their lives, still want to enjoy video games. And it's an absolute pleasure to be able to work with Dr. Mick and Nick and the team.
Absolutely, no, and it's an honor for them to have you involved as a supporter. So thank you so much. I'm gonna get out of the stream and leave everyone to focus on you, if that's okay.
Yeah, well, I think the best thing to do is maybe take you through my story, and then I'm going to leave plenty of time for questions afterwards. As I mentioned, I threw in EA there, but my video game history goes all the way back to Sega, and I joined the video game industry in 1998 when we were trying to figure out how to do online gaming through dial-up modems. Here in the UK, where I am right now, it was a 33K board modem. In the United States, it was a 56K. I was president of Sega America, and one of the great nights of my life was 9/9/99 when we launched the Sega Dreamcast with games like Soul Calibur and Resident Evil and Sonic Adventures and Hydro Thunder and of course Ready to Rumble. It is incredible to see, and as I'm here now with Unity, how our industry has progressed from a somewhat of a boys in the bedrooms mentality, and then now we're what, $150-160 billion industry worldwide, with tens of millions of people playing a game online as I speak here. Sega was wonderful for me. 4.5 years at Sega in San Francisco. We built the brand back from difficult times with the Sega Saturn. I like to think we debuted online gaming, which we all take for granted nowadays, and did so with such a challenging environment of just dial-up, basically. And as I'm fond of saying, it was great until your mum picked up the phone in the other room, and there goes your game. But we were able to get it going, and handed the baton to my next employer at Xbox, who picked that up and really built what I think was the platform for online gaming, Xbox Live. I was very fortunate to be in charge of the Xbox business during that period of time, being based up in Redmond, Washington, with the full support of Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer. They saw something in games, and I'm talking 18 years ago, that they knew that when the world starts to become this massive social network that we are today, that the very core of that would be games. And their foresight, their massive capital investment in building the infrastructure that was Xbox Live, and again, I was very fortunate to be at the epicenter of this, was something that I think is often overlooked as we look at games today. We take for granted that you can simply connect with millions of people, no matter what game you're playing. But there are people like a Bill Gates who doesn't get the credit for being able to perceive what gaming could be, given the capital investment, given the changing of games as one-offs, physical media, and seeing them more as a live operational service. And as I think about my career, as it progressed from Xbox and then over to EA, and being able to be witness to this as the industry grew, the demographic aged, which I was delighted to see as the content, I guess, became more mature and gave people reason to stay with it. It wasn't a phase you went through anymore. And games, of course, like Grand Theft Auto in particular, kept people engaged. And as we're here today with GTA 5 in its 6th or 7th year, and still tens of millions of people playing that every single day. I think from that perspective, we were very much in the mode 10, 15 years ago of beating our own chest, saying we're bigger than movies, we're bigger than film, we're bigger than television, certainly bigger than music. And I think what games has done for the broader medium of entertainment, certainly over the past few years, has been nothing short of outstanding. And my 10 years that followed at EA as president of EA Sports and overseeing the FIFA franchise in particular, but of course Madden, NHL, NBA, Tiger Woods golf, of course UFC in the later years, Fight Night, if you remember that, all of which started to bring this melding of the real world and the virtual world together. In my later years at Electronic Arts, I was the chief operating officer as we went through a really challenging period of merging away from being a manufacturer of game discs and being a wholesaler to retailers, and moving very much into the digitized world of being able to deliver directly to gamers' hard drives, games like FIFA and Madden, and of course Battlefield and The Sims, et cetera, and more recently the Star Wars franchises. More recently, one of my, if you will, diversions, I was contacted by an executive recruiter in late 2016 and asked a very pointed question: would you ever live back in England again? And my initial reaction to that was no. I'd lived in America too long. I was very Americanized. I was an American citizen. But then the second part of that question was, what if it was to be CEO of Liverpool Football Club? So as a Liverpudlian born and bred, as a Liverpool fan born and bred, for me, this was almost the circle of life, and allowed me to go back to Liverpool and get back to a city that had given me so much. And I have, in watching and listening Kieran, the previous speaker, talk about a TED Talk, I do have a TED Talk that you'll find on YouTube that talks about this exact thing. This concept of coming back from whence you came, from who you are, from what your attributes, your skills, your personality comes from. And I'm very proud to go back to Liverpool and give back to a city and a people that have given me so much and given me such a leg up in my career. And a football club that's given me so much joy since the first time I walked through the gates of Enfield with my dad in 1959. But life comes back at you, and games, I couldn't stay away. And when my contract with Liverpool was up and it was time to come back to California, John Riccatello, who had hired me out of Xbox to be as president of EA Sports back in 2007, as many of you know, is the CEO at Unity. And John showed me a piece of technology that revolved around real-time 3D. And this is the world we're all moving into. Games will be integral to this, but the reason I'm here in Liverpool is that I'm on my way to London next week to keynote leaders in sport and to give a little glimpse of what Unity's working on in the world of real-time 3D. We're entering into the metaverse, could be the most cliche technical term of 2021. Everything will have a digital twin. Everything will be in 3D because it's not that difficult to do anymore. And the upsides and the benefits of this, of not having to create physical models or demos before you invest and build are incredible. And in my particular world now, as Senior Vice President of Sports and Live Entertainment, I'm bringing the world of video games. The roots of Unity, and still very much the core of Unity, is video games. 71% of the top 1,000 games on mobile last year were built in Unity. And again, John had showed me this technology, in particular as it applies to sports broadcasting, and really intrigued me, brought me back from what I thought would probably be some level of retirement. And I couldn't be more energized and eager to show the world next Wednesday in London on the stage what real-time 3D and what the roots of what video games have been able to bring to real-time 3D, and then on to the broader mediums of entertainment. This will be sports, this will be music concerts when we virtualize concerts that only 20,000 people have been able to get into, whereas 2 million would love to get into. So I think I'm proud that the industry is the roots now of this technology that will have far-reaching effects on the world as we go forward here. As I say, everything will have a digital twin. It's not that difficult to do anymore. And I'm absolutely delighted that games will be the epicenter and the tip of the spear, if you will, as we enter the metaverse, this always on, always connected environment that we're going to be living in going forward here. So with that, I would love to take questions from the remaining audience as we get late into the night. I guess I'll throw it back to you, Colin. I'm more than happy to take questions from my life at Sega. Obviously, the 4.5 years at Xbox were incredibly exciting, and then the last decade at EA. And if anybody's a football fan, and in particular a Liverpool fan, I'm more than happy to take questions on that as well.
I'm not a big football fan myself, but I did see that you had quite a nice win earlier on this week. So,
Colin, can I ask you, is there a way I can hear you better in the StreamYard app? Because I can barely hear you, and I got my iPad up full blown.
Oh, let me see if I can turn my volume up. I'm not sure there is, but what I'll do is we'll get some questions from the audience, and I'll bring them up on screen. So first question is from our good friend, Mr. Mike Morris.
I can see Mike's question.
What are your thoughts on Liverpool as an incubator of game development?
It's a great question. I think cities like Liverpool, and I'm not too far away from Sony Liverpool, where I'm sat in my hotel room right now, have got the roots of great game franchises. In the case of Liverpool, Sony Liverpool, Psygnosis, started to build this little game called Gran Turismo many, many years ago. And I think what you have is the confluence of university graduates that are coming out with computer science degrees, a creative sense, and Liverpool, and I'm biased as a Liverpudlian, but has this creative sense. 25 minutes ago, I was driving through the Baltic Triangle, which is the kind of digital hub of Liverpool now, and there are game studios growing up there. I guess my best personal experience, and one of the more poignant things for me, was coming back in 2005 to Liverpool from Redmond, Washington, working with Bizarre Creations, a game studio there that we had asked to do a game called Project Gotham Racing. And their game studio was 400 yards from where I grew up as a little boy in the late 50s and early 60s, right by Liverpool Airport. And many people remember Bizarre Creations. And one of the principals of Bizarre, Brian Woodhouse, a great friend of mine, has gone on now to develop Lucid Games just in the Baltic Triangle here in Liverpool. So you have what you have with any area. You have a legacy. You have people who are attracted to the area. Liverpool's a very attractive city for young people to come in and build their careers. You've got 4 universities here, all of whom have computer science degrees. And in the case of the University of Liverpool, John Moores University, have game development tracks within those computer science degrees. and you've got a very livable city that allows people, maybe unlike London and some of the bigger cities, you can live here, you can make a career here. It's a very rich, diverse city, and I think it's attractive to young people to come and game studios understand that, and they will put their headquarters here. Particularly Sony, I think, to their credit, have done a phenomenal job here.
Absolutely. A question from Kieran again, who had a question earlier. So Kieran runs a studio up in Dundee. He's curious if you can give an example of a hard lesson you've learned over your career.
Well, every time anybody asks me that, there's this little thing called Red Rings of Death that was a major part of my career at Xbox, which I don't know what the lessons learned were, other than I still am in awe with how Microsoft eventually handled that on a financial basis, and in particular Steve Ballmer. I've told this story several times, but we very quickly knew that the Xbox 360 was suffering hardware failures at an alarming rate, and we had to figure out exactly why that was. Once we were very convinced that this was something that needed to be fixed on a full recall level, we did the math on this, and it was $1.15 billion that it was going to take us to fix the problems of the Red Rings of Death. If you're not familiar with it, the Xbox 360 had a power ring, and it gave you the state of the console. Usually, the good news is if you had green rings, you were in fine shape. If you had red rings, you weren't. To this day, I'm not totally sure exactly what the issue were. There's a lot of theories around solder that were on the motherboard, GPUs and CPUs. Clearly, the console ran hot. But I know that I walked into a meeting with great trepidation with Steve Ballmer and explained to him that if we don't act now, the Xbox brand is dead. And this was 14 years ago. And I said, we need to recall any console that is suffering this problem. We need to FedEx the box out. We need to have a prepaid FedEx label to come back, and we need to fix it and either send them a new one or send them a refurbished machine FedEx, so that there was a minimum amount of time that the gamer was without their console. I always recall that this was about 200 million in FedEx fees alone. But if we hadn't have done that, and that's the lesson learned, if we hadn't have done that right there and then, the Xbox brand wouldn't exist today. I'm very clear about that this was what I called at the time our Tylenol moment. And Tylenol is an American brand from Johnson & Johnson. It's kind of paracetamol, if you will, in this country. This is a long time ago, but there was one night in Chicago where somebody who's never been caught put cyanide in Tylenol bottles. And this is why you have safety caps. This is exactly what came with that. Johnson & Johnson the next day took its entire product line off the shelves worldwide and did not put them back until there were safety measures in place, which were the sealed caps we're also very used to now. But there's a reason we all have these sealed caps on medication. That was the Tylenol disaster, which it was. This was our Tylenol moment at Microsoft. And to the credit of Steve Ballmer, he immediately, without hesitation, said, spend the money, maintain the brand, protect the brand, nurture this brand, because this is important to Microsoft, because this is the only consumer brand that we have. And we need that brand in the living room. And today I smiled the other day when I saw Forbes with the top 50 brands in the world, and Xbox was one of those top 50 brands. And it wouldn't have been there if we hadn't have acted that way at that time.
True. Great stuff. And another sort of career question. Any but in gaming, what's the proudest moment of your career? That's probably going to be a tough one. There's been a few.
Well, there's all kinds of proud moments. When we launched the Sega Dreamcast in the United States, it was the biggest 24 hours in retail history. I mean, entertainment-wise. We hit in 24 hours at retail just under $100 million in that 24 hours. And the Dreamcast, which to this day is one of the most beloved consoles that has ever been shipped out in this industry, was an amazing, and is still an amazing console, and heralded in, as I say, something that we all take for granted, which is playing online. And this was the first ever, not gaming, this is the first ever non-computer that was connected to the internet. And so that level of pride. Xbox 360 was a great moment as well, because I truly believe if the Xbox 360 had not succeeded, that Microsoft wouldn't be in the gaming business. The Xbox wouldn't be present, and gaming would be the worse off as a result. What I love about industries that have two protagonists, and we as gamers benefit as a result of that. You always want healthy competition, and you want big companies with lots of capital that are willing to spend it to get great games, to build great hardware, to build great services to support that hardware. And we have that. And actually we have three, obviously, with Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. And so, you know, I'm proud of being involved as the head of Xbox during that period of time, of being able to do that. I'll throw in my football thing of being the champions of England, champions of Europe, and champions of the world all at the same time during my tenure at Liverpool Football Club. But that's a non-gaming proud moment.
Yeah, we'll still let you have it though. So just on football, one final question, because we know you traveled today and everything, and you must be knackered. But one final question, just picking up on football as well as gaming. What's the biggest similarity between games companies and football clubs that you didn't expect?
It's a great question from White Pot Studios. I, with great pride, brought a lot of my video game learnings to Liverpool Football Club, and I think to football in general. One of the things we started to really get into at EA was managing our gamer base on a global basis and reaching out to them, despite some of the challenges of EA's image. EA was a company that started to pioneer different business models, you know, much to the chagrin of many gamers. But one of the things we invested in heavily is, as we moved away from our customer being Best Buy or Game here in the UK, and our customer being Colin McDonald, that took a massive amount of turning this oil tanker that was Electronic Arts into a completely different direction, which all publishers that have survived this transition from physical to digital had to do. And so many lessons learned, managing communities, managing intellectual property, building upon successful IP. And I took a lot of that to Liverpool Football Club, and which has 400 million fans worldwide. And with great pride was able to apply so many learnings from video games to engage, to acquire, engage, and have them as part of our growth. And just so interchange gamers for football fans. And it was the same thing. You have this massive, emotional, passionate group of people that engage with your product, whether it be a game or a football club. And you need to create content for them. You need to keep them engaged 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And as things are either good or bad, wins or losses, they still need to be part of your community. And there was so many similarities between what I had, experienced in gaming in 20 plus years and what I jumped into. I had no idea how to run a football club. I mean, it just, there I am, 2017. I'm the CEO of arguably the biggest football club in the world. Not arguably, as far as I'm concerned, Liverpool is the biggest football club in the world. And but it wasn't that hard for me to understand what needed to happen to engage our fans, to allow them to be part of our growth, because I had done that at Sega, Xbox, and Electronic Arts.
So this rounds off tonight beautifully, because we started with a talk by Dr. Jo Twist, the CEO of Trade Body UKIE, and one of her points was that playing games gives people wider skills, and in this case, getting involved in the games industry gave you the skills to run the biggest football club in the world. I think is the point you're making. So I think we can cling to that. Liverpool owes it all to games.
Whether it was the skill, but the experience of managing, massive groups of people and keeping them engaged and passionate and enjoying what you're doing. And one of the things you learn at football, you need to, regardless of winning or losing on the pitch, you need to make sure that they're still with you day in, day out. And regardless of a game that doesn't hit its Metacritic, you need to make sure that they're still there for that particular franchise. And so, yeah, with pride, I took so many of my learnings into football that I had learned through video games.
Great to hear. Peter, we're going to let you go, but thank you so much for taking the time after you've been flying all day and traveling and doing other things. I know you've got some exciting announcements coming out about Unity very soon, so we'll look forward to them. But thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, my pleasure. And just one more thing, Colin, which I think Nick and certainly Dr. Mick know, it's with great pride that Unity Technologies, my employer, is giving $15,000 as a grant to SpecialEffect in validation for the work that they are doing, and Unity respects that. So Nick knows there's $15,000 heading their way, and I think that is going to help so many young people enjoy gaming once again, as we saw with the video with Clarkey, which still touches me to this day. So I'm proud to work for a company that respects and acknowledges what a great organization like SpecialEffect does.
Oh, that's insane. That's fantastic. So generous. Thank you so much. And thank you, Unity. Peter, thank you so much for your time.
Colin, thank you. And thanks, everybody. And to that point, there's a little crawler going across the screen there. Make sure you give.
Perfect.
Cheers. Good night, everyone.
Cheers, Peter. Bye. Wow. Okay. That is a games industry veteran. Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you again for the generous donation from Unity Technologies. Extremely generous. That money will go to really good use. Okay, we are into the. I know it's late. Everyone stayed up late. We're into the final stages. Let me just bring Nick back into the stream. Nick, that's been amazing. How was that?
Wow, what a guy. What a guy.
Yeah.
And that news at the end, we know put the application in, but we didn't know it's been approved. So thank you, Peter. It's fantastic. I think the fact that Tom's connection, and I know everybody was so touched when he sort of took a picture with Never Walk Alone for the week after Tom passed, and he's still fondly regarded Tom, and yeah, so thank you. Yeah, a bit lost of words, which is unlike me. Yeah, so thank you everybody for your donation. There's over £11,200 raised, so just pretty phenomenal, and that's nearly £20,000 over the Team One Special night. So Colin, I want to say a big thank you to you individually. You're a modest guy, but you're fantastic, and the guests tonight, sponsors, the partners, you made a huge difference, and what a way to set us up for tomorrow.
Absolutely. So just on that, let's once again just remind ourselves, everyone that's helped get together tonight, made it happen. So our sponsors, Aegon by AOC, Tag Games, and Genba Digital, thank you so much for sponsoring this tonight. We should have added the Unity logo as well. And then in terms of promotion, UKIE, BAFTA Scotland, SGDA, Pocket Gamer, and Game Republic, and SGN, thank you all very, very much. So I think it just leaves for us to do the raffle, Nick, you think?
Yeah, we love a raffle.
We do. So I am hoping, here's one I prepared earlier. I'm hoping this works. We have added in all the registrations from the Eventbrite page into this wheel of names. So let's go through, and let me bring up the list of the prizes. How about we do the monitor last? Will we save the monitor to last?
Sounds good.
So let us do, for the FIFA 22 code on a format of your choice, kindly donated by Electronic Arts. Let's see who the winner is. Wheel goes round round. Emily Wooding. So we'll do it so that people can only win one prize. So if we do get a duplicate name, we'll just pick another prize. But Emily Wooding gets a copy of FIFA 22. Thank you to Electronic Arts. Next up, we have £100 of Insert Coin clothing vouchers. Thank you to Insert Coin. Let's see. Matthew Omoreji, congratulations. Next up, thank you to Pocket Gamer, who have generously donated a pair of tickets to their next digital Pocket Gamer Connects event in November. Let's see who collects them. Congratulations to Rosie Taylor.
Brilliant.
So for all of these, we will have your emails through the Eventbrite. You will get an email with details of how to collect your prize. Next up, we have a digital bundle of driving games, kindly donated by Codemasters. Gareth Hilston, congratulations. Hope you're a driving fan. Okay, next up is the one that pains me to do. It's the signed Tim Schafer T-shirt that I tried to get Nick to.
Here it is.
Wow. Let me just if you hold that up again, let me just full screen that. Let's have a look.
So that's a one of a kind, signed by Mr. Schafer.
Absolutely. That's very cool. So for anyone that didn't see the stream last year, I was a bit of a fanboy. Actually, I might have the image here. So this is me fanboying Tim Schafer. I'm a bit of a fan of Grim Fandango and all the LucasArts adventures. So I tried to let Nick let me snaffle this T-shirt, but he wasn't having it. We're going to have to raffle it, aren't we? So let's see who's going to steal my T-shirt. Bruce Sutherland, excellent, congratulations. That might be the Bruce I know. In which case, I'll not take that too hard. But yeah, congratulations, well earned. Next up, we have 4 pairs of Monument Valley socks, not available anywhere in the world, kindly donated by Us2 Games. So let's see who the first pair of socks goes to. Blair Percival, congratulations. Second pair of Monument Valley socks. Sam Jenkins, congrats. Third pair. Edward Hugo, well done. And the final pair, you won't be able to get these anywhere else. Ali Hill, fantastic. We will talk. Okay, next up we have donated by Creative Assembly. a Total War Kingdoms Collector's Edition with exclusive art book and statue. Javier, congratulations. Hope you're a Total War fan. Very special prize there. And then next up, we have a pair of, not just one, but a pair of general admission tickets to the Isle of Wight Festival next year. Thank you so much to Barclays for this. Erin Sullivan, congratulations, you're on your way to the Isle of Wight. And also kindly donated to Barclays, we have a pair of general admission tickets to the Latitude Festival 2022 as well. Let's see who's the lucky winner of those. So Jasso Garcia, congratulations. You're on your way to Latitude. And then our final prize, if I've got this right, yes, our final prize is a stunning Philips HDK monitor with Ambiglow, very kindly donated by our lead sponsors, AOC Gaming. Thank you very much to them. Let's see who the lucky winner is. Matthew Tibbenham. Well done. We will get that sorted out to you. So we will be in touch by email. In case we don't, please get in touch with either myself or with SpecialEffect in case there's something wrong with your email. But hopefully you'll hear from us first. I think we're done. Nick, is there anything else we should cover?
It's just simply to say thank you to every single company, person who'd been part of tonight and all that you do for SpecialEffect. I said it for the third time, it's your charity, not our charity, and tomorrow is very special. It's going to make a huge difference. Tonight's been very special. So thank you. And hopefully see you again next year if I can persuade Colin to do this once again.
Absolutely. I'm getting to talk to Tim Schafer, to Peter Moore. Yeah, why wouldn't I want to do it? So yeah, absolutely. And we've had, such amazing speakers. So just to also thank all our speakers again. So thank you to Dr. Joe Twist, to Tom Brennan, to James Butcher, to Imre Jele, to Kirsty Enfield, Kieran Holmes-Darby, and of course to Peter Moore, who my wife's probably now going to kill me that I've got a tattoo of someone else's name on my arm. We'll see how long that takes to come off. But thank you all so much for giving up your evening to come and talk to us. It's been great. And to everyone that's watched and participated, and in particular donated, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Every donation makes a big difference. Even if you couldn't donate, it's just great that you were able to join us. There's been a lot of learning, and hopefully you'll get to participate in another part of SpecialEffects one special day and the Steam sale that's on as well. So thank you very much for coming along. If you're looking for a job in games, then this channel is the Games Jobs Live channel. Feel free to like and subscribe and stay tuned for future events. But otherwise, I think that draws one special night to a close. We'll let everyone go and get a nightcap or go off to bed. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.